Everyone's looking to play an angle. I'm just here to clean up the mess.
Tell you what, stop freelancing, join my staff, I'll make it worth your while.
Forget it. I'm my own man. Nobody pulls my strings. I'm independent. I'm happy.
Well, be my man one more time. I'm having quite a difficult mess with Arcane.
Publishing house?
Yeah, my biggest account. They just filed a claim. Could cost me millions. I want you on this right away.
What's the claim?
Sutter Kane's missing.
Who?
Sutter Kane.
Do you read Sutter Kane?
When top-selling horror novelist Sutter Kane suddenly disappears, his publishing house Arcane begin a desperate search for the author. Freelance insurance investigator John Trent is hired and tasked with finding Kane either dead or alive and retrieving his latest novel. Joined by Kane's editor, Linda Stiles, the duo finally track Kane down to the unmapped town of Hobbs End, where fiction meets reality, insanity lurks in every corner, and the only question that matters is, do you read Sutter Kane? Welcome to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature, and on this episode, we'll be covering 1994's In the Mouth of Madness, directed by John Carpenter. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to another feature presentation of Midnight Double Feature. Thanks for joining us. We're going to be covering one of my favorite movies of all time, In the Mouth of Madness, directed by John Carpenter. But we are not alone on this episode. We have actually one of our favorite podcasters from one of our favorite podcasts, Chris from Hey Do You Remember? How are you doing, man?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, fuck yeah. Thanks for coming on. And of course, my one and only, Zoheb.
Hello. I'm so glad to be finally, I'm going to tip my hand, finally watching this movie.
This has been lurking in like the background of all of our movies, dude. I was, we'll watch like Prisoners. I'm like, it's good. It's no In the Mouth of Madness, but it's good,
Dude, I'm just like, if he mentions In the Mouth of Madness on another episode again, I'm shutting down the podcast. We're done. We're done. See you guys.
No, yeah, and go ahead, bud.
No, I was just going to, put Chris over here on a pedestal because I goddamn love Hey Do You Remember?
Oh, thank you.
Like that's definitely a podcast that, along with a couple of others, was definitely something that was inspirational to us. We definitely looked at your podcast 100%, both of us in agreement, me and Colin.
Mm-hmm.
And we looked at it, we were just like, man, like, we wish.
That's sweet of you to say. I appreciate it. And I'm excited to do this when, there had been a couple other times Colin had reached out about coming on the show and scheduling was always really challenging. And then when he threw this out a couple months ago as an option, I mean, it was just like immediately I was like, oh, fuck yeah, that's a great idea. This is something we would never go anywhere near on Hey Do You Remember? It gave me an excuse to take the cellophane off the Blu-ray. Like, okay, I can finally watch this. And actually hearing that you had never seen it before, I was excited about that too, because what a great perspective. It's kind of a bonkers movie to just be seeing for the first time. So yeah, I can't wait to get into this.
Hell yeah, dude.
Hell yeah.
Well, if this is your first time listening to us, this is one of our feature presentation episodes. It's longer than usual. We also have our upcoming attractions episode, which are hosted by our friend Matt Vella. That's kind of his kingdom. That's his playground. Those are, anything. We've also got one coming up for Endgame. We cover stuff that's just come out. We give our reviews, Pet Sematary, Hellboy, Captain Marvel, a lot of stuff that's come out recently. And if you guys want to check us out, we're on all of our socials, Twitter at MDF Pod. We're on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. We've got the Facebook page, Midnight Double Feature, and the group called The After Party. Everyone's invited to that. And if you want to stop by and rate review us on iTunes, that would be awesome. Tell us you love us. Tell us we suck. Tell us that we're not as good as Hey Do You Remember? We'll believe it.
Come on.
Chris is like, shut up. But yeah, without any further ado, why don't we jump into some opening thoughts? Chris, you're the guest, so what do you remember? No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, no, I love it.
I was thinking that's right, like, I swear to God, I was going to go, Donna, what do you remember?
I remember loving this movie.
But yeah, hit me with your thoughts on In the Mouth of Madness.
So do you guys remember Fangoria magazine? Did you read that at all when you were growing up?
A little bit, yeah. I had two older brothers, so yeah.
That's not a thing here.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So, well, when I was a kid, this was like a horror magazine that my mom was very hesitant to let me read. Even though I was already watching a ton of the movies that they covered, the magazine itself was sort of off limits. Like these covers, especially back in the day, they were just designed to be kryptonite for responsible mothers. So Mom eventually relented and let me get a subscription to this. But before that, there were a lot of weekends where I would stay with my grandma and grandpa, and sometimes I could get grandma to buy me these individual issues of Fangoria. And I had flipped through some of them in the bookstore, but the first one I ever owned, I remember this. It's Fangoria number 140. The cover was for that Clive Barker movie, Lord of Illusions. And inside there was a big article and a review of In the Mouth of Madness. And John Carpenter was already a name that meant something to me, not as much as it does now, but even then, I knew this was a guy that made movies I really liked. Sam Neill was an actor I really liked. I mean, this is like hot off of Jurassic Park, so this was kind of a big get for Carpenter. They had also done that really shitty Invisible Man movie, the one with Chevy Chase, a couple years before this. And so it's weird. It's like, even though my memory of this is that Fangoria gave this movie a pretty lukewarm review, the article about the making of it, or this interview they did with Carpenter, that really piqued my interest. So then on another trip to Grandma and Grandpa's, after this was out on video, I got Grandma to rent this for me. And this is a running theme on Hey Do You Remember? All of these insane R-rated movies I sat through with my grandparents because they'd let me watch anything, but they also stayed in the room. So like I watched The Toxic Avenger with my grandparents when I was like 11 years old, one of the most uncomfortable afternoons of my entire life. And so this was another one of those instances. And on that first viewing, I thought this movie was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I was probably way too young to appreciate what it was going for. But a few things changed as I got older. The main one being that I started reading H.P. Lovecraft and becoming more familiar with all of his work. And then, this is so weird and random, but the catalyst for rediscovering this movie when I was in college was actually the video game Silent Hill 2. I loved that game. And even though I recognized a bunch of its influences and the other media it was pulling from, one of the things it was making me think of was In the Mouth of Madness. So I was like, I haven't seen that in so long. I'm going to go check that out. I'm going to give that another look. This is when Blockbuster was still a thing. So I went, picked it up. And that second viewing, all those years later, that's when it clicked. That's when I was like, holy shit, this movie is awesome. And not only is this probably a better Silent Hill movie than the actual Silent Hill movies, it's also better than most of the more direct film adaptations of H.P. Lovecraft's work.
Oh, yeah.
Even though it's not strictly based on any of his stories, but like the themes, the tone of it, it really captures the spirit of that stuff in a way a lot of other movies have struggled to do. And this is also probably the last movie Carpenter's made that I really enjoy. The 90s, this was a really rough period for him. This film actually comes out at a really interesting point for the horror genre, which maybe we'll get into a little later. But I think this is one of his most underrated films. And so it's been cool to see more people starting to discover it and talk about it these past few years. It definitely feels like it's having some sort of redemption, which is not uncommon for Carpenter. A lot of his movies weren't immediately appreciated, but yeah, that's where I'm at. That was probably way too much. I'm sorry.
No,
short
fuck
version.
you.
I liked it.
That was fucking awesome. I mean, hell, that's what we brought you on for, man. Your fucking beginning monologues of your shows are just infamous, dude. Those are fucking awesome. And I expected I would be insulted if it were anything less. But I tell you what, Zoheb, since this is my pick, you go ahead, bud.
Oh, dude, I have to follow that.
Yeah, dude. That's why I was like, no, you go ahead, dude.
God damn it. But no. So like I already said, I have not seen this movie before last night.
Jesus.
So I am still like full on wrapping my head around this. But not only had I seen it, dude, before I'd met you, I had never even heard of this movie. Like,
shocking.
It never it never appeared on my radar at all. Like I said on the Thing podcast, dude, I have a massive gap in my John Carpenter history. Chris, you're about to have a stroke because I have never seen the original Halloween.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Yeah, man. I feel like I'm being stared at with daggers right now.
No, not at all. You know what? And instead of being like, oh, just stop what you're doing and go see it. Actually, my immediate thought was like, that's one of those that, I mean, I love that movie. It's in the top 3 Carpenter movies for me, but that's kind of a hard one to get to too late because of everything that ripped it off or emulated it, that it's hard. That's one that's hard to go back to. Like you have to put it in context to really appreciate it. Whereas something like The Thing, I mean, you could show that to someone who's totally unfamiliar with Carpenter today for the first time and still blow their mind. Right.
That's totally timeless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I did see the 2018 Halloween, and I did like do a lot of brushing up on the original without watching the original because I'm an idiot. So, yeah, but look, man, this movie kind of blew my mind. Like, I was messaging you, Colin, as I was watching it, like on and off. Like, I was just like, this shit is genuinely creeping me out. Like, it is so, dude. Like when they're driving along the road and you just see the bike, the people on the bikes, man. I was just like, he is so good at creating atmosphere. Mm-hmm. Like the way he builds the atmosphere and the way he pays those things off, man, it's fantastic. Sam Neill, dude, I've only seen 2 movies of Sam Neill. Obviously Jurassic Park. The other one is check out The Hunt for the Wilder People.
Dude, that movie's so fucking good. I'm so glad you just said that. Yeah,
never heard of that, dude. Never even heard of that movie.
Directed by Taika Waititi, who did Thor Ragnarok.
Oh,
he's also
okay,
good.
Cool.
Yeah. Check it out. I mean, like, that's the movie that pretty much got him Thor Ragnarok, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I do like Sam Neill, man. Like, I dig him in this movie. Is it just me, or does his accent slip?
Oh, I couldn't decide. I spent the whole movie going like, are they trying to hide his accent or just letting him like run wild with it? It just, not even from like scene to scene. It's like from line to line. It's like, oh, there it is. And like, oh, I guess he's suppressing it. No, there it is.
Right, no,
it's
super
That's
honest.
What I messaged you, Colin.
Yeah, when he's like, oh, he was an amateur. I'm like, dude. And then later on, he's like, this is not reality. I'm like, dude, I can't even, except when he says beer, that's about the only time I can really pick up on, because he kind of floats in between, we were talking about that, between New Zealand and Australia, right? Isn't he technically from New Zealand, I think?
Yeah, it's technically from New Zealand. He's definitely got a house here, though. So I know he's definitely spent a lot of time here.
Right. But no, keep going. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, man, but like, it's tough because this is such a crazy movie to wrap my head around. This is a very Colin movie.
Oh, yeah, it
is. like I'm thinking back to when we covered The Void.
Yeah. Fucking love The Void.
Dude, I'm watching this and I'm like, oh, there's a tentacle thing with that's lathered up in KY jelly. That's Colin's shit.
Yes, that cosmic fucking dread, dude. I'm always right there.
Well, not only that, dude, and the movie is dark. Like, it doesn't have an happy ending. It's just all dread. It's just all dour. And man, sometimes I dig that shit, and I do dig that here. Like, I was on board with this movie. I love the whole concept, the whole premise of like this author who writes something and then it just ends up being a reality. Like, that shit to me was wild. I'm sure that's been done in movies before. Like, I believe Supernatural did like a massive sort of plot line where there was this kind of like prophetic character who wrote a comic book and it ended up becoming true and stuff. I don't know, but like that's pretty common. I do have a couple of issues with the movie that we'll get into. Mostly it's to do with the premise not being entirely fulfilled. Like, I wanted to see a bit more of the of that stuff come to fruition, but it just didn't happen for me. But yeah, man, like, I can see why this is your favorite. It's definitely a solid movie. I'm definitely keen to get into it, and thank you so much for making me watch it finally.
Oh, well, hell yeah, dude. This is, like I was saying, this is just stuff that's right up my alley. I think, I think I was talking to Chris off air earlier, and we were talking about, seeing stuff when you're way too young and, getting sucked into this kind of stuff. And I mean, growing up, I was watching, I can remember watching It, Nightmare on Elm Street, Mouth of Madness, Hellraiser. I was watching these movies at a really young age. And some of it not for the best, but most of it for the best. You know, this shit definitely fucked me up like as a kid for a little while. It was the one that I was like, okay, I'm not going to shit straight for like 6 years. Like, dude, I'm fucked now. But this was one of those movies I just remember, you know, you see the case and you're like, what the fuck? It's just like this open book and all these faces being pulled in. And I remember going to school and asking my friends, I'm like, my brother's got this awesome movie, but I've never seen it before. And I can only find the case. I can't find the tape. And I'm like, well, what's it called? I was like, In the Malcolm of Madness. That's what it is. It was, dude, for years I called this In the Malcolm of Madness. Like, I was probably 11 or 12, you know.
It's just got Frankie Muniz in it, just losing his mind.
Oh my God, that'd be hilarious. And this is just synonymous between my brothers Adam and Austin. I mean, if it wasn't for my brother Adam, I never would have seen this, Young Frankenstein, Silver Bullet. I mean, some of my favorite movies of all time. So he definitely influenced a lot of what I listened to, what I read, what I watched, stuff like that. And this was one of those I couldn't, it went way over my head when I was younger. I just remember, okay, this is, you know, I couldn't have even told you what the fuck meta meant. I had no idea. But it's one of those things you watch it, and as a kid you love it, and you kind of start getting into other stuff, you know, and I was always a fan of horror, but then I was probably about 22, 23, and I just found it free online one day streaming on some website, and I was like, oh, hell yeah, dude, I'm gonna watch this. And I was like, oh my God, I forgot how fucking good this is. I was like, this is just holy shit. And I mean, not only, I'm a huge John Carpenter fan. I love the way he frames things. I love the fact that he does his music with his movies, and he's great on these like low budget films. I also think that kind of works like against him when he gets bigger budget movies. And I think that you take a guy who's just, who's used to having these small meals and put him at a buffet, it doesn't go that well. And that's what I've always thought about John Carpenter. And it's like, man, he's just one of those, not when you let him like hog wild, but when he's not restricted, it's not a good thing, in my opinion. What was Halloween made for? Like $300,000, I think, is like nothing. Versus, this movie's made for, but somewhere I've read in between like $8 to $10 million. And I can remember I always being a fan of stuff like that, of meta stuff, like as a kid. There wasn't like a whole lot of stuff that but this is like meta on a whole other level. This is like, so I think that the only thing around it's the subject and around the time period that you can compare this to is Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Totally.
That's super meta. That's, that's the movie within the movie kind of universe. And I like that kind of stuff. I don't have a problem with it. But this movie's logic, once you start applying any kind of logic to it, it just crumbles. It just completely crumbles apart. Like, why doesn't Sutter Kane, why does he write John Trent that fights him at every angle and stuff? Like, dude, you could just write in anybody who could just, and this guy came and got the book and took it to humanity, the end, and like, that's just kind of it. But there's anytime you start applying like too much logic to this kind of stuff, it starts to lose me after a while. But because there's so much nostalgia wrapped up in it, I could never not like it. And it's not without its problems. It's not a perfect movie, but a lot like Carpenter's movies, this bombed. This is part of, the Apocalypse trilogy, The Thing, and Prince of Darkness. And I definitely think this is better than Prince of Darkness, but The Thing, it's just, that's in like my top 10 favorite movies of all time. I put Blade Runner and The Thing like neck and neck. I think those are two like right around the same year, directed by two of my favorite directors. And speaking of favorite directors, there's something about even, and this is kind of random, but even Edgar Wright. I'm a huge Edgar Wright fan. He's one of my favorite directors. I love everything that he fucking does. But there is something interesting when you look at, and I'm sure Carpenter is an inspiration on Edgar Wright. He has to be. Just from everything I've read about the guy, there's no way, as much as a fan he is of sci-fi and horror, I would find it really, I would just be in disbelief if Carpenter wasn't an inspiration to him. But you always have these man versus society kind of conflicts in their stories. Shaun of the Dead, it's zombies, Hot Fuzz, it's the town, World's End, it's, it's these robots or whatever. And that's a running theme in all of Carpenter's stuff as well. You've got, everybody against everybody in The Thing. You've got, Rowdy Piper and They Live versus fucking everybody. And it's this constant, and even like, the Thing is kind of everybody isolated in one place and this stuff's trying to get in. Very similar to like Prince of Darkness. Everybody isolated in one place, everybody trying to get in. And I think he gets away from that, Escape from New York, Escape from L.A., stuff like that. But there's a lot of his stuff I have not seen. I've never seen They Live. I've never seen Escape from New York or L.A. I've never seen The Fog. But what I have seen of his, considering I've seen some of his lesser, people would consider his lesser movies, like Prince of Darkness, Mouth of Madness, Christine. I love Christine. It's great.
Yeah.
It's so underrated. And so is this. And I think, like you said, Chris, this is perfect. It's got this snowball effect of this cult movie, and it's just been growing and growing and growing. And I'm like, it's about damn time. And it's also about damn time for a fucking remake. I'm okay with this being remade. I think that now is the time, because when you look at the way that the horror industry was, especially in the early 90s, like you said, he had just come off Jurassic Park, which I'm not saying is horror, but a year later, you've got Scream. And Scream comes along and just and that's kind of meta in its own way, but it just comes through and just kind of demolishes stuff. And I think that this is a script that I know that is written in the mid to late 80s, I think.
Yeah, late 80s.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, 1989, I think, is when the script was finished and first started going out to directors.
Right. And and you can tell that means this thing's probably getting written on in 88 or 87, maybe. I don't know. But this definitely feels like an 80s movie at a night. Smack dab right in 95. And 95 is not a great year for horror. I think that's when Freddy's Dead comes out. This comes out. A lot of stuff is just, I think
written by the same screenwriter. A New Line executive named Mike DeLuca wrote Freddy's Dead and In the Mouth of Madness.
Yeah, and he goes on to he's one of the big wigs of DreamWorks, and he's like a super producer. He's produced just insane shit. Mm-hmm. So much fucking stuff. But I still love this movie. It's not without its problems, but the parts where Carpenter's not trying or where it's the scariest. And I think that's really evident. I think the kid on the bike, Mrs. Pickman, all of the shit. I'm like, dude, that's fucking terrifying. But for one thing, this is an hour and 30-minute long movie. You take away the 15 minutes of the Metallica intro that you have, and this is like a short film. It really is. And that being said, I fucking love the intro music to this. This is Jim Lang and John Carpenter. And I read a little bit. John Carpenter's a more of an improvisational kind of musician when it comes to that. And he was Jim Lang's totally different. He's I went on vacation for 2 weeks, came back, and Jim Lang had written 40% of the soundtrack to this. It's holy hell. So I thought that this soundtrack was just awesome. I listen to this all the fucking time. I'm listening to this going to the gym or at work or something. I love. And now they actually have the John Carpenter anthology CD. I'm not sure how long that's actually been out. I don't want to say they just got it, but I know that they redid it from the film and remastered it and re-recorded it with his son, actually, who's part of his band. So it's that's fucking cool, man. You're a director for decades, and then you're just well, I'm gonna semi-retire and then just hit the road playing the music from your fucking movies. I was that is awesome. That is such a cool, such a cool job. But I love this movie. Like I said, it's not without its flaws, and I'm super pumped to get into it. So if you guys are ready, we can jump right in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Before we do, hold up.
Do it.
I wrote something. I wrote a note just on something that you were talking about, Colin. I didn't want to interrupt you.
No.
With the logic, when you apply logic to it and it kind of falls apart, I do agree. If you do apply logic to it, it kind of starts falling apart. There is a very similar movie that came out this weekend and is destroying the cinemas. They're destroying the blockbusters right now. That did the same. You can kind of approach it the same way. If you apply a little bit of logic to it, it might fall apart. Check it out next upcoming attractions, guys. We're going to talk about it.
Can I guess what it is, or are you guys keeping it a secret?
It's a little indie movie. You'll never guess it. You'll never guess it.
Under the Silver Lake?
Yeah,
that could be it. That could be it.
It's actually
really, you can edit that out if you're trying to keep it a secret. I was I think I know where he's going with this.
It's actually The Room 2, written and directed by Tommy Wiseau. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, what I'm kind of getting to is with that movie as well. If you apply logic, it's just going to fall apart. But the thing about that movie and this movie is that you're kind of wrapped up in the mystery or the story that they're trying to tell, and therefore you're so much more forgiving.
Yeah.
Well, I am with this at least. This movie for sure. The mystery elements just keep me going and keep me invested. And it's definitely trying its best to not give me enough time to think about the logic behind it, and I think that definitely works in the movie's favor.
Well, yeah, and like I said, yeah, the world building is great. I think what they do is just phenomenal with all the people freaking out. Did you guys notice the use of blue like later on as this movie? I mean, obviously there's the joke, I tell you my favorite color is blue, but even when Trent is in Harglow's office later and he's saying, I don't even know who this Linda woman is, blah blah blah, everything is blue. Harglow's shirt is blue. It's like the blue, it's like blue floors, and even there's a shot right before he chops down the guy with the axe where like every other person has a blue article of clothing on. And I was like, dude, that's fucking crazy. And it's just subtly as it goes on, there's like more and more. And I was like, man, I'm not really sure if I'm just like trying to find that or if I'm like actually finding that.
No, that's definitely intentional.
Okay, yeah, that makes me feel better. I was like, dude, I might just be fanboying and like trying to like.
Well, here's a little caveat. I'm not going to pick up on any subtleties at all, so I'm just going to rely on you two to help me out with those kinds of things.
It's funny though. So because the idea is he's written the story and the story is becoming reality, that so all of these things he's describing are now existing in the real world. So like, yeah, his favorite color is blue, he'll say later. And then so then trying to imagine what the description in the book was for all the stuff we're seeing. And so it was just like the overuse of like, and they were standing in a blue office. He was wearing a blue shirt. He took a sip from his blue coffee mug. And then they went into another building and you're like, let me guess, was it blue? Like if it just, it's funny to try and imagine the descriptive text he was writing in the actual story in The Mouth of Madness that became everything we're seeing.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing too, is I'm like, I assume the book is literally just everything that we're seeing. It's him, opening up here and at the asylum, and it's just kind of a self-fulfilling, thing. But it's awesome. I fucking love it. I say we just go ahead and jump in if you guys are ready.
Yeah. I'm done with the interruptions. I'm sorry. Let's go. Let's get into this.
Cool. Well, we just looked at it with fresh eyes. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm so fucking going to keep doing this. No, but we are introduced to John Trent right at the beginning, obviously played by Sam Neill. He's being committed for an unknown crime. He struggles, but is eventually tossed in his room and drowned out with music. I love John Glover at the beginning of this. I can't honestly remember what his character. He has like fucking 5 lines, but he's great. I actually had the chance to meet him at a Louisville SuperCon, but his line was long as fuck, and I was like, God damn it.
All those Smallville fans, I bet.
Oh yeah, I grew up watching that, so I dig it.
Yeah.
But
I like John Glover. I think anytime he pops up in something, I get really excited. But he always feels like he's in a different movie than everyone else around him. Always, no matter what the movie is.
I agree.
See, I was actually going to say that about Julie Carmen and Charlton Heston and Jurgen Prochnow. It's like I was like, man, some of you, I don't think you know what kind of movie you're in here.
Mm.
Well, John Glover, I mean, like, I don't know much about John Glover, but man, I can tell you right now, in this, as this character, doesn't he look like a mix between Matthew McConaughey and Willem Dafoe? Like
kinda.
In this era, yeah, definitely.
If you match those faces together,
if you put them together and they had a baby with the guy from Homeland, I'm like, dude, that you look like I can't remember.
Damian Lewis.
yeah. He's in Dreamcatcher and stuff, but yeah, one thing that I like about this is that Trent, put him in number 9. He's actually in number 9 at the Pickman Hotel and at the Insane Asylum. I was like, that's
nice
fucking
touch.
Cool.
I picked up on that, but the only way I picked up on that was, they didn't do $237 for the hotel room. That's lame,
right? And yeah, this bald orderly that he kicks in the nuts is from X-Men. He's the one that Wolverine Cage fights. I was like, I know that guy. I was like, I was obsessed with that movie when I was a kid. I can't tell you his name. I fucking know it's that dude. I was like, holy shit.
That's awesome.
But yeah, he's tossed in his cell, drowned out. Oh, not the Carpenters. That's got to be intentional, dude. Like, come on. Especially, I mean, not only the music, but also the name behind it. And I like this. I like the kind of world building. This facility is like a water treatment plant or something like that. And most of this is shot in Canada. And it's a water filtration plant. But and apparently a couple things have been filmed here. And after 9/11, they were like, nope, nobody's getting in here. You're never filming anything here again. It was like, alrighty then. Like they just thought, in case something happens, it's like, wow, that's really interesting. It's a great, I mean, it's a great exterior shot. I fucking love it. That winding road, and it's very cathedral-esque looking.
It's perfect. It's like it's the kind of thing you picture when you read Lovecraft stories. The exterior is so amazing. I wish they had made a little bit more effort to get all of the basement stuff that they shot on a soundstage to match the location shooting they had done. Just a little bit, because it's pretty apparent when we cut from everything they shot in the actual location to then now we're on a soundstage for all this stuff of him getting tossed in the cell and everything. But which is all, I mean, it's a great set. It's appropriately moody and everything. But the Art Deco, the really modern, the sleek, minimalist design of everything on the upper level is so cool and creepy, and how sterile it is. And then you go into the basement and it's more of like a medieval dungeon. It's not a perfect match.
Right. No, looking at this place, I mean, especially just how long it is. Like, God, this building is fucking huge. It's monolithic in a way. It's so big, it's kind of scary. Yeah, John is thrown in his room. He's drowned out by the Carpenters. This shadow appears behind him. This is a rotten way to end it. This isn't the end. You haven't read it yet. The hand breaks the glass behind him. We have all these flashes. Sam Neill got the fuck cut out of him doing this, by the way. They busted out that glass and it slit him in the back of the neck. And John Carpenter was like, yeah, he was kind of pissed about that, but he was a sport. He was a trooper. I would strongly suggest not listening to the commentary of this with John Carpenter, and I think it's Gary Bibb the
cinematographer.
Yeah,
it's just all technical stuff. It's all this lens, and this is how we lit this, and that's super interesting to me. But yeah, it's really, really dry for just a casual viewer. Carpenter is really the best commentary tracks are the ones he does with Kurt Russell. The familiarity they have with each other. Kurt Russell is just a more gregarious, he's got a more gregarious personality. This commentary track, oh boy, it's a snoozer.
It's such a snoozer that somebody at Film School Rejects wrote an article that was like 18 most interesting things from In the Mouth of Madness commentary, so you don't have to listen to it. I was like, holy shit. Which it actually does have some really cool stuff. You know, he cut himself in the back of the neck. Apparently Sam Neill would go around singing Beach Boys all the time. He was just obsessed with them. These effects are all done by K&B Effects. And there's a lot of this stuff. It's just absolutely great. It's a great article, but it's terrible commentary. But yeah, Sam Ninja. Holy shit.
Sam Ninja. This movie's a lot different than I remember. There was a lot more action, you guys. The ninja stars at the end. Oh, what a build up.
That would be fucking great. Just like at one point he walks out and he's a ninja. He's like, wait, what the fuck? And Sutter Kane's like, no. And just starts hitting the backspace button. He's like, no.
I love it.
I'm just imagining that iconic scene from Jurassic Park when he stands up and he's just got like the ninja outfit on.
Yeah, some crouching tiger, hidden dragon shit. Like he's running on a blade all the way up to the T-Rex. Eventually, Trent is visited by Dr. Wren, played by David Warner.
I love David Warner. I forgot he was in this. It's been a while since I watched this, because he's in and out of the movie so quickly. But God, what a great character actor!
His filmography is insane. I mean, there's so much. As I was looking over, there's so much stuff that he's in that I had no idea. I was like, holy shit! And a lot of these people too. A lot of these actors are like recurring things within John Carpenter's kind of world, especially Sam Neill. You know, they worked together a couple of times, but this guy at the beginning who's sweating his ass off, I think it's Jason Clarke, I think might be his name. I think that's his name. He is in 7 John Carpenter films. I was like, holy
the guy
shit.
Who's trying to run the scam that they
Peter Jason. That's what it is. Yeah, him.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question. When they come in for this interview, when David Warner comes to interview Sam Neill here, and this is where Sam Neill he's covered in all the crosses and everything that he's drawn on himself all over the walls and all of that. How did he draw these perfect crosses on his face with no mirror? Especially that one in the center of his forehead. That shit's elaborate.
Right, yeah. It's like, dude, look at Manson. Manson couldn't even pull it off. Like, come the fuck on. Like, Charles Manson couldn't draw shit on his face. Because that's what the whole time I'm wondering, too. I'm like, is he, like, running to the glass on the door and being like, just, like, trying to get, like, a little glimpse?
Can we also just acknowledge that he did all of this with one crayon?
Yeah.
I mean,
And with crayon, dude, try drawing with crayon on your skin. Let me know how it turns out.
Or a
Because
padded wall.
yeah, exactly. Like I would have actually loved if they'd have shown him with like this tiny little nub of crayon just still drawing like that.
wait. I realize this is not an actual problem. I'm nitpicking the fuck out of this. Where did he get a crayon? That's not standard in the we're going to pad the walls and leave you a cot, and here is your obligatory single black crayon. Do with it what you will.
Yeah.
It's from the kids' play area in the penitentiary.
Yeah.
God, right. Yeah, sure.
They're like, here, you go ahead and redecorate. You're probably going to be here a while, dude. But eventually, Trent is visited by Dr. Wren, who's played by David Warner, and his story of how he arrived is told to us over a cigarette. Longest cigarette in the world, by the way. When they cut back to him finishing the story and we go back to present day, he's still smoking the same cigarette. I was like, wow, I guess it's like some Inception time when we do flashbacks. I don't know. But this is where we're showing Trent, and what he does. He is this freelance insurance investigator. This guy Peter Jason. I was like, is this Meatloaf? Like rewatching this, I was like, is this guy Meatloaf? That's like the first thing I thought, and I was like, no, totally not. But I was like,
No, it's Robert Paulson.
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I love all this. He's so charming. Right here, I mean, he's like, oh, they said the check would be here 3 weeks ago. I don't understand, blah blah. And he's like, baby, listen, I sympathize. Yeah, it's like he's so calm and cool and collective. The hilarious thing that cracks me up is he's like, man, it's hot in here, isn't it? He's like, yeah, it's kind of boiling, And then he's like, should I turn the AC on? He's like, no, I'm fine. I'm like, dude, you just said you're fucking boiling. Like this, there's such big dick energy in this room right now. It's just like so much testosterone flowing.
This is shot really well too. I mean, you can tell, like Carpenter has talked about how he saw this character, Sam Neill's character, as kind of a Philip Marlowe, like a Humphrey Bogart kind of that sort of vibe. And so you can feel all of that noir stuff in this introductory scene where you got the slow spinning ceiling fan, the shadows of the blinds on the wall. Like, I mean, it's the most obligatory noir scene in the film. I mean, it looks like it's not that dissimilar from the opening scene in Chinatown, actually.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I love the way this part's shot.
Yeah, I think Gary Kibb did a great job just shooting the entire film throughout the whole thing. Like it definitely looks fantastic. It's just a pity that he's so up his own ass in the commentary.
He's also like, I mean, he's the director of photography. What else is he going to talk about? The only anecdotes he has, or he's just like, I mean, this is the scene where I use this lens. I'm out.
Yeah, that's
the music's good.
That's the hilarious part about the commentary is Carpenter's like, yeah, and we've got Sam Neill here, and he smokes a lot of cigarettes, and Gary, why don't you tell us about this? And he just kind of every time he just laterals over to him, and he's like, okay. I mean, John Trent is John Carpenter. Like I don't think there's any doubts about it. The chain smoking, which I know Carpenter's like notorious for. Any interview, always smoking a cigarette anytime. And he's even said this before in interviews. I am a short range pessimist and a long range optimist, and I think that is totally John Trent. I think Trent knows that there's fucked up shit, and I mean, maybe he's a little bit more of the long-term pessimist. We fucked up the air, we fucked up the water, let's just flush our brains down the toilet. I'm like, that feels like some John Carpenter shit from just all the stuff that I've watched about him. He is that kind of almost, definitely cynical, but, almost like a Debbie Downer like type in a way. I think he and I would actually get along.
He is adorably cantankerous. I love my cranky Uncle John. I love that about him.
And yeah, this is where, we're introduced to his employer, Robbie, for this job. For a second there, I really thought Robbie was just going to put the fucking moves on him, because he's just like, nobody could figure out anything except for you, and you're just so fucking awesome. I want you to be my man one more time. And it's like, dude, calm down. Like don't go to all the way to the shaft level yet. Like, Jesus, like bring your head back up. Like I was like, there's parts of this that are like, I get it. We're trying to set up that he's extremely proficient at his job, but like what he did really wasn't that hard. Like it's some shit that maybe you should have done from the beginning, like investigate his wife and follow him and see what's going on. And they couldn't spot this if it was right in front of their nose. I'm like, he really didn't do that much, really.
I love how you say that, but yet you made me read his lines at the start of the episode for the intro for this episode.
I was so close to being like, "You be Sam Neill." That sounds more accurate.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is where we've got the Axeman coming in. He's also saying, "I need you to go investigate this." Arcane Publishing is putting out, or they're about to make a multi-million-dollar claim that Sutter Kane is missing. The guy breaks the chops into the wall with the glass with the axe, and this is just
so awesomely shot.
Oh, dude, the framing of it is awesome.
That one wide shot they have of Sam Neill in the diner in the foreground and the guy across the street, leaving that building and walking towards them with the axe. That is such a great shot. I wish they had done this entire thing in that one single wide shot.
Oh, that would be fucking great.
Yeah. And that it just reminds me, it's because that's the simplicity of early John Carpenter. When you watch his early movies, he doesn't cut unless he absolutely needs to. And I think just like a lot of, I was going to say horror movies, but I guess kind of movies in general from this era, from the 90s, this is just slightly over edited and you notice it in a couple of key spots. And this is one of them where there are just like way more cuts in this particular sequence than there need to be. It was obviously set up in that wide master. You could have just like stayed right on that right until the axe hits the glass. And instead then we move in for a close up of the guy leaving the building. And then it's just, too much cutting. But overall, I mean, it's still the way this unfolds is still creepy as fuck.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if you keep the focus, I mean, like, if you keep it wide and just focus on, like, all three of those characters, like, you have him in the background, the Axeman in the background, does that take away from the focus of what they're actually talking about? Because what they're actually discussing is very important to the plot, right?
Yeah, so, but I don't see, I'm always in favor, though, of, I think the best filmmakers, they're really clever about how they dole out the exposition in these really exposition heavy scenes. Yeah. And this is one of the tricks they always use, which is like, I think they trust audiences to know you're going to pick out the key information. If anything, a moment like this, it actually makes you lean in more to the scene. You find yourself being even more attentive than if you're just watching another scene of these two talking heads going back and forth about something in a diner. I actually think it makes you pick up the exposition even more. Suddenly you're way more in this moment trying to track both things at once. So I don't know. It kind of breaks my heart every time I watch this of like, oh.
Yeah, it definitely made me kind of like not cringe. I was just like, oh man, like it's a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a pity. Also, Colin, and I'm sure you've seen this too, Chris, doesn't this remind you of Shaun of the Dead?
Oh yeah, especially with him being outside and you see the guy picking up the bird, like trying to eat it.
Like they're totally like oblivious to it, and like until he's like right at the window.
Yeah, I would have loved if the guy stopped and like got a hot dog and was like eating a hot dog, staring at him for a couple of minutes, and then he like wipes his mouth and like and goes back into the walk looking all menacing.
Well, Sam Neill also has the most casual reaction to this whole incident too. It's nuts.
Dude. He's like, "What you got there, mate? An axe?" He's like, "What the fuck is that?" No, that shit is fucking great because Robbie has the sense he hits the ground. He's like, "I'm getting the fuck out of here." Sam Neill's like, "Well, I mean, I just got comfortable. I mean, this is a pretty comfy seat."
That seems to be the problem, fella.
Yeah, you got glass in my coffee. No, I love this. It's this. I mean, if there's an iconic line from this movie, I mean, it's this guy chopping the, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" Like, dude, that is so. I heard that in watching trailers for this, and Jesse Privet and I know from Countdown to Geekdown, he's a big fan of this, and I posted something about it someday in like an LSG page, and the first thing he commented back was a GIF of that guy being like, "Do you read Sutter Kane?" I was like, oh, that's fucking awesome, dude. I know he's a big fan of this movie too, but yeah, I love this whole beginning of this. We're wrapped up in this mystery. Even the first time, literally, the word the name Sutter Kane is said, boom, we have violence immediately. We have this crazy shit popping off. Like as soon as the mention of him is even here in this world, the fucking shit starts to unravel, and it's like, holy hell, that's really cool. Oh yeah, and he's gunned down by police very quickly. Trent is then introduced to Jackson Harglow, played by Charlton Heston. He was billed in this like oh man, oh my god, Charlton Heston, blah blah. And they must have shot his shit in like 2 days. Like, I mean, he's in and out of this motherfucker. I mean, Julie Carmen and Charlton Heston are the two. I'm like, you guys are here to get a paycheck. Like, there's not like there is like I'm just gonna say I don't like Julie Carmen in this movie. I just don't think she's that great. I like her in stuff like Fright Night 2. I grew up watching, but even as a kid, I was like, there's just something weird about her line delivery in this, and especially Charlton Heston's I think great even when he's just taking Easy Street. I mean, he's a classic actor. He's been in so much stuff. In fact, they said when they were on downtimes, it was so boring on set that Charlton Heston would just like recant them of tales of old Hollywood and what it's like today and blah blah blah. And they said everybody was super interested in it. But he's introduced to Jackson Harglow, who runs Arcane Publishing, and their best editor, Linda Stiles.
It's only fair that you go in and out of an accent as you do this. It's totally appropriate.
Yeah. Their best editor,
very
Linda
respectful
Stiles.
to the source material.
Yeah. They explained Kane disappeared about 2 months ago without a trace, and the last person to hear from him was his agent, who was sent a few chapters of his book. It is then revealed that the Axe Maniac earlier was Kane's agent. I love that shit. He's like, he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, you saw the guy gunned down. I heard you were there. He's like, that's his agent. And he's like, I thought somebody who outsells Stephen King could get better representation. I was like, that's fucking hilarious. I love that. And obviously they talked about him outselling Stephen King. Sutter Kane is Stephen King. I mean, I know it's Lovecraft type of work, but Sutter Kane, Stephen King. I'm like, dude,
totally. Come on. And like Hobbs End is Castle Rock. I mean, yeah, it's a mix of Stephen King and H.P. Lovecraft.
Right.
Yeah, I totally picked up on Hobbs End being Castle Rock pretty much. It's weird. Just a quick aside, I was reading Roger Ebert's review on this, and he kept referring to Hobbs End as Hobbs Corner, and I was just like, what?
Because I think Lovecraft does the same thing. I think he has a fictional, is it Arkham? Or I can't remember. He has a fictional kind of Castle Rock, Derry kind of area, but I've read a little bit of Lovecraft. I picked up a book when I was like 20, 22, and I just had to have a fucking dictionary next to me the entire time. And I was like, oh my God, this guy is so, I mean, it's a totally different era of writing. It's very verbose and, just has a lot of these, 6-syllable words and stuff. But it's great. The stuff that I did read, I really enjoyed, but it's just, every 30 seconds I'm having to run to a dictionary and be like, what does this word mean? What the hell is this? It's revealed the Axeman earlier was Kane's agent. Kane's work is known to have an effect on his less stable readers. Trent expresses his disbelief in their claim and suggests this is a publicity stunt for the new novel. What's hilarious is that, Trent picks up several of Kane's books and begins to have these vivid nightmares. Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, because the guy apparently read 6 books in like a 12-hour window. Like I know he reads like Hobbs End horror and stuff like that, but it seems like later on in the movie he knows exactly what's going on in these books. He talks about Hobbs End horror and stuff like that. But I was like, dude, did you just cram like the whole Harry Potter series in like one night? Like you just like cram these books down?
Well, hang on. You've said a couple of things. It kind of this sort of all ties together. But starting with Julie Carmen, is that the actress's name? Why am I blanking on this? But I also am not a huge fan of her performance. I lay more of the blame on the writing than I do on her as an actress. I just don't think there's anything to that character. But what that reminds me of is that, I mean, when you really get down to it, I think, speaking to something Zohab said earlier, the mystery is so intriguing that like the mystery is more interesting than the characters in this. And now ideally you want it to be both. And I do think there is a little bit of a missed opportunity here with the characterization, particularly with her, but even a little bit with Trent too. This is the questions that the movie is raising are intriguing enough that you want to follow it through to see the end. Right. But what I thought was going to happen, with Trent's character, he's very dismissive of Sutter Kane. It's to me, I would believe that he had never read any of the books because he felt like it was beneath him. But as written, it's that he's never even heard of the guy, or like it's more like, isn't that horror author? Like he doesn't even have any awareness of it at all, to such a degree that I thought it was going to be revealed as she's walking him to the elevator after that meeting that he let slip something that makes her go like, oh, so you are familiar with those stories. Like, you at least know something about them. You're just pretending that you don't. And I thought like that may have been kind of that would have revealed something more about him as a character. The version of him he's trying to present to everybody else. And then, you know, kind of letting it slip that there's another version of him underneath. And then just paying attention to the dialogue, I was starting to feel like, as written, like when Mike DeLuca was writing this, I think there was a disconnect between how he was picturing this main character and how John Carpenter interpreted it when he read it. Because a lot of the more hard-boiled elements, like the vibe that Trent gives off in his dialogue and the way he treats people, it's almost like DeLuca was picturing someone more like mid-90s Mickey Rourke than someone like Sam Neill. And actually, by the way, if you like this movie, I highly recommend this movie called Angel Heart with Mickey Rourke. There would be a good double feature, actually. But again, Carpenter saw the character as more of this Philip Marlowe type. So like Humphrey Bogart, Robert Mitchum, that kind of a vibe. I think Sam Neill is a great actor, and I think he definitely has like a certain swagger to him, but it's a very different sort of swagger than those actors I just mentioned. And so I don't always feel like what he's doing performance-wise gels with what's on the page. The chain smoking, the kind of crass dismissiveness. And it's like, look, pick a lane, especially in these early moments. Is he a Luddite who doesn't read, isn't into it, doesn't care? Or is he an intellectual who's too good for all of that? Because there's traces of both, and I would have preferred they just kind of went all in on one, because as is, I do not really have a strong sense of who this character is. And I get it. That's not why most of us are watching the movie, and in like 15 minutes, it's not even going to matter because we're going to be paying attention to all the other crazy shit going on.
Right.
I still think it would have made for a stronger and more emotional movie if he... I don't know, man. If he just made more of an impression as a character, if you didn't have to rely completely on the charm of Sam Neill as an actor.
I think I definitely agree, because like as I was watching this, I felt like, and maybe miscast is too strong of a term. I don't think he's fully miscast. I just think there's not a understanding of who this character is. And it was definitely tough for me to connect with him. I think Sam Neill, though, the way he shines is this whole, and we can talk about it right here because this is kind of where it starts, this whole sort of like cynical nature of this character. He's kind of like the Dana Scully, if you will.
Yeah.
The non-believing, the one who's just like, well, this isn't true. Like this is not logical. I think Sam Neill shines more in that kind of aspect than anything else that the movie's trying to present to us, if that makes sense.
No, that's actually my favorite part of all this, and I love that they keep it going as long as they do. The idea that he's looking for the logical explanation, or is just so the cynicism of believing this is all just some stupid publicity stunt. Mm-hmm. And that's like one of the big hooks of the movie. That's such a great way. That's a great engine to hang the story on, and like it keeps introducing that's the conflict between him and not the agent. What is her role? What is her job title?
She's one of their top editors.
The editor.
Right.
That she keeps insisting, you wouldn't be so confident about all of this if you had paid more attention to the books, and assuring him we have nothing to do with this, and him just sort of like, all right, but at some point I'm gonna find you out. At some point the truth is gonna come out, and I like that. I love that it carries on way longer than I expected it to.
Same.
See, and you're right. If it wasn't for Sam Neill, if it wasn't for the charm of Sam Neill, then this character would just be very two-dimensional. But I that's the thing, is like, I think it's hats off to Sam Neill, whereas like, whereas like with Julie Carmen, I think that it is part of the script. I think it's like 60-40. I think her delivery is just awful in a lot of the shit. It's terrible. But with Sam Neill, you take a better actor, with a lesser script, and a lot of his stuff, it is his charm, but it's also like, this guy's kind of an asshole, and I kind of relate to that. As terrible as that sounds.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to change any of that.
No, I was laughing. I was like, this guy kind of reminds me of me. Some way, like skeptical. Like I'm very, somebody. Point in case, my girlfriend sent me this picture that her mom took of something, and she thought there was like a ghost in the background. I was like, I'm not even looking at that. I was like, I'm not. I was like, I'm just like I am. All that stuff is like interesting to me, but I'm very like skeptical of shit like that. And I think that's something I relate to with Trent. That's so great is the skepticism. Going into this, there's always a logical explanation. There's always something kind of reasonable, and I think that's great. But it's also cool to see that later. That's the person that you want to see reduced to nothing at the end of the movie, and it's so great for his character.
Well, you know what it actually kind of reminds me of. You mentioned it at the top of this episode, and that is a story. The miniseries maybe a little bit, but definitely the novel. It does have some of that cosmic horror. It definitely has a Lovecraftian influence. And what that just made me realize was in a lot of these mindfuck reality-bending movies, something that the protagonist usually has to struggle with at some point is something more personal, that whatever this larger evil is fucking with him on a more personal level. There's some sort of trauma in the past that the evil tries to exploit, and to be confronted with a vision of something. And that's in the way that like Pennywise fucks with all of the kids very personally. It has to be real because what the hell else could have known this about me? And he's not even enough of a character to have that. We don't even know what that would be for him. I mean, it's like, the other reason this is kind of ultimately, this isn't a major strike against the movie. You also mentioned this is very lean and mean. I mean, it gets in and out with like, we get 80 minutes of story here. So for that reason, I mean, this isn't an obstacle that the movie, doesn't overcome or anything. It's just, in fairness, I think the characterization across the board could have used a lot of work, and also just the fact that there is no chemistry between our two leads is sort of an insurmountable challenge.
Dude, it's like watching two planks of wood fuck. I was like, dude, Jesus, this is just terrible. I actually like the fact that they kind of, maybe there's a little bit of times where there is like a minimal flare up of something romantic between them, but it never really goes down that and goes into that alley. And I love that. I love the fact that this was not something, because I'm not going to lie, a lot of people have called John Carpenter out for being kind of like misogynistic in a lot of his movies. It's very muscular, like rugged guys. I mean, for God's sakes, like, James Woods in John Carpenter's Vampires, his name is Jack Crow. I'm like, come the fuck on, dude. Like, a lot of his shit is just so like masculine in that way. And I was like, dude, I'm glad that, like even with the thing, it's an all male cast, which, I mean, they were actually supposed to have a female in there, but I think she wound up being pregnant at some point. But his movies are always centered around like men in that type of way. And I like that that just didn't become like a plot device, that wasn't like, and of course they're going to bang, whatever, because that'd just be such. Well,
and I think we should specify that when we say they don't have chemistry, I don't mean romantic chemistry. I just mean period.
Right. No, for sure. I mean, I know they're supposed to be on, I think the negative kind of chemistry, the fact that they're on total opposite sides of the fence, I think that comes across really well because she seems like this kind of like more artistic, more of a creative person than Trent does. And that comes across me he seems like a very calculated, like type person. And I think that comes across, but I mean, it's just barely does it come across. And I like the fact that they just didn't try to go down any romantic alleyways when it would just have been so easy to do that, But yeah, this is where he gets the books. He has the dreams about the cop. Dude, that fucking scare of him waking up on the couch and the cop is like right there. I hate jump scares. That one's fucking good, dude. I still kind of like it. What do you guys think?
Oh, I loved it. And it says he does something similar in Prince of Darkness where you think you're out of the dream. And then and in this one, the 3 dream fake outs, when it did it, the second one, I was like, okay, what are we doing? This is weird. We just did this exact same scare. But then after the third one, I was like, oh, fuck it. I'm sold. This is perfect because now from that point on, this is the moment where really reality is completely unreliable because there's already been layer after layer after layer. So now we're already starting to question, the reliability of everything that we're looking at.
Right. Yeah. And I think that, like there's there's something about the jump scares that I hate in this. Most of them I fucking hate. I don't like them, like, especially as I'm watching them on TV. You know, I'm watching most of my stuff on an Xbox in my living room. I'll put my headphones into my controller just to be watching it on headphones, and the dialogue is super quiet, and then it just, you know, these like ear-piercing, sharp-ass like noises. I'm like, God damn it, I fucking hate that. But this is one of the few times it was actually kind of effective on me.
Yeah, it's good. This one's good.
I think it's...
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think it's kind of amplified as well, because this is the first time that you see the, I guess, the prosthetics and the sort of special effects that are on hand in this movie, like with the cop's face, right? So you're not really sure what you're expecting, and then it's like, boom, like there it is.
Well, and also this guy who plays Kane's agent, they said he was such a trooper. You know, contact lenses, you know, for a very long time were extremely uncomfortable. A lot of them made of glass and stuff like that. And they said it scratched the fuck out of this guy's cornea. And they said he didn't complain about it at all. They didn't even know until he was done for the day and had taken his contacts out. I was like, holy shit, what a trooper.
Did anyone complain about any injury on this movie, or did John Carpenter just say, no one complained, just shut up and deal?
He's like, I tell you what, you smoke a cigarette, you go sit down, come back, you'll be all right. Just go get a pack
John,
of Marlboros.
I have lung cancer.
Yeah. But through his readings and on the covers of the books, this is where Trent discovers the map hidden on the covers of his books. It's a map of New Hampshire. That's a total, you know, H.P. Lovecraft, Stephen King reference. Trent deducts that Kane is in the town of Hobbs End, located smack in the middle of New Hampshire. How the fuck does he know it's Hobbs End? How is there any indication? Is there something I'm missing?
No, I wondered the same thing, because she's like, that's not... There's no such place. It's not on any map. Well, not on any new map. And like, but then there's no follow up.
Right. You could have just said, hey, we think he's in this place. It's right here in the middle of it. It could be a small town or something that's unincorporated. You know, it could be anything. It doesn't even have to be a town. It could just be a house in the middle of nowhere. You know
why that would be cool? To just say, like, this is the point on the map. This is where he is. I don't know exactly what this place is, but I think that's where we're going to find him. That would have made their arrival there, when they turn to look out the window and see the sign for Hobbs End, that would have been amazing.
Right, because we focused the whole beginning of the movie is watching the cover of Hobbs End Horror getting made. They talk about Hobbs End a lot. You see that one more than anything, even more than the actual In the Mouth of Madness cover. So yeah, that would have been great. And yeah, especially just, you know, the whole coming over the bridge and the signs right there and it's daytime. That would have been fucking fantastic.
He just pulls out a new iPhone and shows them, see, you had to download Google Maps.
Yeah, right. That'd be
you
so
needed
great.
the update.
But yeah, this is Trent again expresses his disbelief, asking if they actually want him to find Kane. Excuse me if this all kind of sounds a little bit like bullshit. I love his delivery there. And, you know, this is where we get Harglow. We have nothing to hide, you know, and I assume you don't either. So they send Linda along with him as well. I love the reactions and the looks between Charlton Heston and Julie Carmen. She's kind of like, fuck you. And he's like, well, fuck you. You're going. Like, you can totally tell in the look. But the two embark on a road trip to find Hobbs End, discussing reality and the influence of Kane's work. Reality is just what we tell each other. This whole thing of, you know, if reality is just what we tell each other, if Sade and Insane were to swap places, you'd find yourself in a padded cell wondering what happened to the world. You get it? You get what she's doing there, guys? Hey, did you get it?
It went right over my head.
I was like, dude, God, there's heavy-handed, and then there's like putting on a chainmail glove and punching me in the teeth while I sleep. I'm like, holy fuck! Like, I've always hated that part. I just never really liked it. I was like, dude, yeah, we already know that. Like,
yeah,
that's something that would actually be kind of interesting if we didn't see what happened to him. Like, that would be, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I like those things after the fact, but like once I already know where it's leading to, that's not effective on me at all. I mean, it's kind of cool, but I was like, that's just kind of. That's kind of lame, you know, just to end it with the being in a padded cell. I don't mind her whole thing about, you know, because she's kind of right. You know, it's very, have either of you guys ever read the book, I Am Legend, Richard Matheson?
Yeah.
No.
It's fucking great. And it's way better than the Will Smith movie, even though it's not a bad movie. I don't hate it, but the book is fantastic. And that's, you know, spoiler alert, if you don't want me to ruin a 50 or 60-year-old novel. At the end of I Am Legend, it comes to be that he is the boogeyman. That's why it's called I Am Legend. He's like, I'm the one who goes and pulls these people out of their homes while they're sleeping and murder them. And that's what I think is that's what I think would be kind of like effective here in this way of, you know, it's the majority rules kind of thing. And I like that because she's right to an extent, but just the whole thing of, oh, you'd find yourself in a padded cell, blah, blah. I don't need that. Please leave that out. Like, I really don't need that.
While the Carpenters play, and John Glover is there, and it's a film directed by John Carpenter. I agree. It is underlined just a little too much. I do love the first part of what she's saying, though, which I think is what you're saying too, Colin. The idea of like reality is just something that, you know, we all agree upon, and how the subjective nature of it. There are a couple of really tremendous lines in this script along those, you know, those same lines. And this is the first one. The first one was just like, fuck, that is a cool idea. And then, yeah, they just get too cute with it right at the end.
Colin,
no, for sure.
I got to bring this up because it's totally unrelated, and that's what I'm doing on this episode, apparently. You mentioned I Am Legend, so here's a connection. The Omega Man was a movie in 1971. Do you know who starred in The Omega Man and what it's based on?
I think is it Vincent Price? Or is
it's Charlton Heston?
Yeah, it's Charlton Heston, and it's based on I Am Legend.
Holy shit, I think Vincent Price is in like Last Man on Earth or something like that.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
There have been like 5 adaptions of I Am Legend, by the way. Like they're all different shit. I was like, holy hell.
I just couldn't let that go because it was just nerving at me. I'm just like, I got to make this reference.
No, fuck yeah, dude. It's all connected.
I know. One of my favorite shots is here in this moment as well. Like as they're driving past, it's kind of like this. I think they use kind of like this fisheye lens, and it just kind of pans to the right, and you get that shot of like the cornfield.
Yeah, I love that because
awesome.
it just follows that left to right, and it just sees them going. It's like, dude, they're going, and gone like that. I love that. I think that's great. I'm glad you said that. This is some of my favorite parts of this movie. All of this coming up, their whole trip to Hobbs End. This is where during the night when they're driving, Linda passes that boy riding on the bike. I just think it's great because it's almost when you see him the first time and he's all young and and he's pedaling away. It's kind of almost this. Now is the time that you can't turn back because you see him, he's young. 5 seconds later, she sees him again, he's old. And it's like, holy shit, now you have crossed over. Like, now you're in the world of Hobbs End. Like, I love that.
I really want to talk about this. This is one of my favorite sections of the movie, too. I would just be remiss if I didn't mention my previous bullet point here. You can cut this if you want. This just really stuck out to me. The shit with her falling asleep and then him taking out the bike horn to wake her up.
Oh, yeah.
I keep this bike horn here for just this reason. What is that doing in there? And then it's like, whatever they're trying to establish about him as a character in this moment, he has never behaved like this prior to this.
So
he will
weird.
never behave like this after this moment. There's like, it would be like they get to the hotel and then he gets her to sit on a whoopee cushion. And it's just like, oh, Trent,
it's
just your tricks.
It's just a really heavy-handed way of trying to build some kind of chemistry between them. And I'm not a fan of it.
It just felt really out of place. It could be an adorable scene with like different characters in a different movie, but it feels really out of place in this movie, especially based on what they've already set up about Sam Neill's character.
Right, because I love that part where he honks the horn and he's like, "We're lost." He said, "Never, ever, ever throw chips at a driver." I'm like, dude, I love that exchange. I think it's funny, but it's in context with everything. You're like, yeah, he kind of does. It's not like he ever has like like the flower on a shirt filled with water. Or he's like making rubber. He's like making rubber balloon animals as he's running down the tunnel at the end. Like, there's nothing. It's kind of like it's the only kind of like levity that you really see in him. That's not this like cynical kind of like shit. That's what's so funny is I assume this car is probably like a rental. She's like, "Oh yes, do you want the insurance?" "No, I don't want the insurance. But what I do need is a large bike horn always in the glove compartment. It can never be touched. Make sure it's perfectly tuned." But no, I love this. This whole thing is one of my favorite parts. It has completely terrified me still as like an adult. I will be riding somewhere with my brother Austin, and my brother will just say, Just imagine that thing from In the Mouth of Madness. I'm like, shut the fuck up, dude. It's like 11 o'clock at night. Shut the fuck up. I'm like, don't do this to me.
This is when I texted you. This is when I texted you, dude.
I thought so.
The only thing that I could help me get over it was like, oh, does someone want to tell Doc Brown that he can't reach 88 miles per hour on a bike?
That's
oh,
fucking
the old
great.
man. When the kid turns into the old man, that looks like John Carpenter.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it totally does. This is giant.
He rides by smoking a cigarette. Cut! That was terrible. Not enough glass hilarious. In your eye.
But yeah, well, she ends up hitting the kid right here. I think one of the best touches is when it's not, because it would have been so easy for him just to be like, oh, he won't let me out, and have this old man's voice. But the fact that it's the young man's voice, I'm like, oh, fuck this, dude. Like, and I like Sam Neill's reaction. He snaps up and he's like, oh, don't move him. I'll get a blanket and blah, blah, blah. I love this windmill, this recurring windmill that pops up. Like, I think it's right here where she sees the thing like flipping around and round, and it pops up a few times like later on. Mm-hmm. But I love this because it's a cool kind of like marker where it's like you're right at the edge of what's happening. But yeah, just the glimpse that he fucking shoots back at Styles as he gets on the bike. It's I mean, in the shot of him driving off, it's just, that's terror inducing. Him just disappearing out into that blackness. I'm like, holy shit. To just keep repeating that over and over again. Like, we actually talked about this in our Bird Box episode when we covered Bird Box, by the way, spoiler alert if you haven't seen that. But it's the guy in the freezer who, once they shut him back in, he acts like he wants out. And once they open up, he is actually one of them, and they shut him back in. As soon as they shut him back in, he just starts all over again. Like, he's like, please help me, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that shit is what fucking scares the hell out of me. It's like the constant repetition of stuff. Like, you tweak Groundhog Day just a little bit, it becomes a horror movie very quickly. Like, that shit scares the fuck out of me, dude. Like, waking up and just even little things here and there where I think, I did this yesterday, or, oh man, I looked over, I look over today, it's 1:14. The next day I look over, it's 1:14, or like, I can't tell how many times I've done something like that, or gone to walk my dog and the same guy passes by in front of me with his dog, but I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird. Like, that happened yesterday too. I'm like,
glitch in the Matrix.
Dude, I was just about to say, is there a fucking glitch in the Matrix? But yeah, this kid just gets up and rides off into the fucking darkness. And yeah, this is where they are kind of, I guess for lack of a better term, like mysteriously transported into the town of Hobbs End.
This is so well done.
It is, yeah.
The cutting, the really disorienting stuff. It's so awesome. When she looks down and instead of the ground, it's just the lightning flashes and they're in the sky somehow. Like, all of it is so, so good. And what I love most about it is, he sleeps through all of it and just wakes up and it's like, oh, you're brilliant. You found it. And it's like, no, they don't find the town. The town finds them, which is really cool.
Well, and especially I'm like, can you give her a break and drive? She just hit somebody, right? I'm like, you can take the wheel for a little bit. Like, that kind of cracked me up as she hits this person. She's obviously rattled. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking, oh, here, I'll take the wheel for a while. You just hit somebody. Why don't you rest and relax? He's like, all right, yeah, go ahead and get behind the wheel.
I'm going to go back to bed.
Yeah, this time maybe try, let's do like less murdering of children. All right, good night.
Yeah, he's like, hey, by the way, keep your eyes on the fucking road. No, what I thought would be hilarious if she looks down and she sees the ground, it's just this clouds and thunder and lightning, but in reality she's on like 4 hits of acid in a ditch. The wheels are just like turning. She's staring at the ground.
But I love watching it back because it's like when they get to Hobbs End, like she's freaked out by this whole sort of like occurrence of how they got here. But then when you watch it back, knowing that this shouldn't be here, like this whole thing was kind of like a ruse, like the Hobbs End. You know what I mean? Like she thinks that, like, what the fuck is this? This is not part of her plan. It's so wild to her because it's oh man, I after that twist, I love that. I love going back and watching this after that twist, like where it's just like, well, we as the publisher staged some of this, but this part of it isn't supposed to be staged.
Right. And I always forget that too. Like her reactions when she starts seeing stuff are so much more palpable than Trent's because she has the information that Trent doesn't.
Right.
That reminds me though, this is the first time I've watched this and noticed that this is all Trent recounting his story for that doctor in the psychiatric facility. So there are a lot of events he's describing that he was not present or awake for.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder, because I guess if he's just, which I mean, we're led to believe he's just the character, that's just, I guess that's something Sutter Kane could just be like, and he remembers all this stuff, and he's just like, he's just typing it in for the book. Because it's kind of, I think you actually pointed, I think it was in one of your, it might have been in It. I think it was you guys' It episodes. There's something where Mike Hanlon is rehashing all the stuff that happened, and you're like, Mike should remember any of this shit. Like he wasn't around, But yeah, they make their way into the town. They cross over the bridge, like you said. Oh, you're brilliant! You found it. She's like, you drive. I think that's great. It's so appropriate. They enter into the town, which they find to be almost entirely abandoned. I thought that was great. Speaking of It, actually, I know this is filmed 5 years apart in very similar places. So it's like, this feels kind of like Derry a little bit, like when I'm walking or when I'm seeing them walk around, this kind of like older feel to these buildings. It definitely felt kind of Derry-ish to me. But yeah, and this whole thing, I think this is where she sees the kids chasing the dog and stuff, which fuck those kids, dude. Like if do you notice later on with the dog, like they're continually chasing the dog up to a certain point. And then I think when she goes to the black church, they kick that ball out and they're like, you're my mommy, blah, blah, blah. The dog has 3 legs now. Yeah. I was like, oh, fuck you. I was like, where's Kane's agent? Because get that axe and chop these fucking Damien Omen kids to pieces. I was like that. I'm sitting there with my dog. I'm watching it with my dog, Tom, and I see that part and it was like, come here, buddy. Just come here for a second. I need to hold you. I've gotten we got a dog in the past year and I have become crazy cat lady dog person now. I'm like, oh, let me brush your teeth. Like doing shit that we never did for dogs. Like stuff about dogs. I mean, animals in general, but dog stuff now gets me very oh, fuck you. Actually, when we were talking about prisoners and he chokes that dog up by the collar, I was like, I will fucking kill you. I swear to God. I was so agitated by that part. But yeah, they find the town entirely abandoned. We get that great shot of the axe covered in blood. And we are introduced to Mrs. Pickman. This is
a reference to one of Lovecraft's, I guess one of his more well-known stories, Pickman's Model. And what I hadn't considered was until this viewing was how similar the plot of this is in the broad strokes to Pickman's Model. So yeah, that's a great touch.
What's the story of Pickman's Model? I actually haven't read it.
So it's the narrator of the story is describing an artist who is painting these really grotesque, monstrous things to the point where the community he's a part of, they kind of ostracize him. They find this work too offensive and disturbing. And then, I mean, speaking of spoilers, everyone should just read this story. It's really short and it's really good. But very briefly, when you get to the end, it's a lot like this, actually, where what it turns out is these things he was painting were not from his imagination. They were very, very real. And so it was almost like they were kind of communicating, showing him what to paint. And then there is sort of a break in reality, kind of similar to this.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's extremely similar, actually. I need to read more Lovecraft. I've read a shit ton of Stephen King. I love King. Anybody who listens to this podcast fucking knows. But I need to read more Lovecraft because, I mean, especially stuff like Lovecraft and, talking about Richard Matheson, that's a huge influence on King. I do like Richard Matheson a lot, though. He's fucking great. Duel's a really good one. It's a good short story if anybody's ever read that.
This actress, Frances Bay, I can't unsee her as Happy Gilmore's grandmother.
Dude, you can't take her stuff. She's too old. That's all I fucking think of. Can I trouble you for a glass of warm milk? And that's what makes her, I think that's what makes her so terrifying in this, because we're so used to her as this kindly old lady and so much stuff, and she's great. Are you guys Seinfeld fans?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, she's like, give me that bag, or what's it? He's like, give me that bread, you old bag, and he takes her marble rye and runs off with it down the street. But no, I think that totally helps with the fact that she's Happy Gilmore's grandmother. You know, she's this sweet old lady, and then in this, I mean, she is a fucking goddamn demon. I was like, dude, she is one of the she's like neck and neck with the kid on the bike is some of the scariest shit to me in this movie. And especially later on, right here, not so much. She's kind of, if they had started right off the bat with her having the bags under her eyes and acting kind of mysterious, then I don't think it would be as effective. But the fact that she's just so, she seems like a little old lady that runs a hotel in the middle of nowhere. And I love that. I love the whole, you don't need me to put down a credit card or give you a phone number. Oh, you big city folk, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, like I said, this is the H.P. Lovecraft reference. Oh yeah, we're just stopping through your town. It's pretty famous for Sutter Kane. She's like, I don't know anybody named Kane. I like all that. And one of the things that they're having this, as they're walking in, she's saying, oh, there's a picture behind me on the wall. Oh, there's a floorboard loose, blah, blah, blah. And as they get up to her room, she's like, I think this is where she starts getting into, they're arguing about the town and whether Kane's work is fictitious or real. But the whole thing is like, I think there should have come an argument up from Trent at some point when she's like, all this is real, all this is in the book, all this is really happening. And he's like, no, this is a real town, and he's based the book off of this town. That's all it is. And I'm like, that would have really worked, I think. I think that would have been great as an explanation, because even then it refutes everything. He's like, oh, there's a church right outside this place with the, the tall towers and the big onion, things on top. And it's like, yeah, this is a real place that he based the book off of. Like, that's not unheard of. Like, plenty of authors base fictitious places off of real places. That's not unheard of at all. And I really wish he'd brought up that point somewhere along the way, just because it's a very logical thing to do. Okay, the guy took a lot of inspiration, so what? It's not.
I was thinking the same thing. I thought he was going to, honestly.
Yeah, I just wondered. I was like, am I crazy? Like, am I getting fucking like nitpicky here? But this conversation is good between the two of them. I think this is where, is this where? I think it might be later on where she's like, it's all happening for real, Trent. All of it. We weren't supposed to find anything. I'm like, oh my God, dude, I can't listen to her talk anymore. Like, there's certain parts with her delivery that I just, they're losing me, Trent. And I'm like, good God. Like, her delivery just absolutely kills me, man. I can't stand it. And that's what sucks is she's a good actress. I think Chris is totally right. Part of it's the script, but I feel like just as much a part of it is Julie Carmen. It's just, I don't think she's a right fit for this. I don't like there's parts where she's great, but I feel like the majority of her stuff, like if the eyes are the window to the soul, then she is dead inside. Because I was like, there's nothing about her. There's nothing as I'm watching this that I just really love about her character.
Well, it's kind of funny when you get to the end. It's sort of like Sutter Kane agrees with you. He's like, I just got to write that shit out. She never existed.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm like, holy fuck. She starts going over all the stuff. He's like, there would be that church out there. You didn't pay attention to the books as closely. The church is from this west view. I love this church. I think it's like a Greek Orthodox church or something. I can't remember, but it's a real place, fucking built out in the middle of fucking nowhere. I'm like, dude,
it's nuts. And
you got lucky with those visuals, dude.
Yeah, I think a lot of people had for years were inquiring about, whether or not this was a matte painting or a miniature. And they said, no, it actually exists. We just went and shot all this there. But it's like, if you lived in that small town and that thing were just out there on the hill, you would really have to question, like, hey, are we maybe living on a hellmouth? Is there maybe something going on here? Like, it's what a striking location, though. It's amazing.
So apparently, the exterior of the Black Church is called. It's shot on. It's called the Cathedral of the Transfiguration. It's in Toronto, apparently.
Even that sounds like some Clive Barker shit.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
It will tear your soul apart.
I feel like Professor McGonagall's inside just teaching Transfiguration.
I love this. I love this description that they give, and a lot of this is pulled straight out of Lovecraft. Like a lot of this stuff, especially what he's reading. This place had been had once been the seat of an evil older than mankind and wider than the known universe. It was a place of suffering beyond human understanding. Originally, there was an old stone church built on the site in 1788, but the Black Church swallowed up the old sanctuary the way it has swallowed up our minds. I love the inscription on the door. Let these doors be sealed by the Lord God, and let anyone who dare enter this unholy site be damned forever. I'm like, God, talk about a do not no trespassing sign. Like, holy fuck. I love that kind of shit. That's very, what is that? What do they talk about in American Psycho all the time? In the book, it's like, this is not an exit, or I can't remember. Oh, that's going to piss me off now. I think it's abandon all hope, ye who enter here. That's what I'm thinking of.
Phil Collins, I think, is what you were trying to say.
Thank God. Waterworld. That's the movie. No, that's something my brother does to me all the time. I'm like, what's that movie? He's like, Waterworld. He's like, the talented Mr. Ripley. Like, he always says every time, like, fuck you, dude. It was Universal Soldier. Okay, that's what I was trying to think of. But I love this, them as they're getting closer and they're examining this church, the mob of locals storm the front doors wielding weapons and demanding that Kane give him back. I like that Styles knows all of this is going to happen. Trent, we can't be in front of the church. They have guns, blah, blah, blah.
Hold on. Colin, what was the message that I sent you at this point when I was watching the movie for the first time?
Is Kane a prophet?
No. All in capital letters. Is that Vigo the Carpathian?
Sure is.
Yeah. Dude, I will say, I mean, it sucks because as far as like a look goes, he does have a very like terrifying look, and rightfully so, because that guy was a gigantic piece of shit in real life. He was a fucking horrible person. Have either of you read about this guy?
No.
About the actor or Vigo?
No, I mean...
Did you guys know Vigo was a huge piece of shit? I think that came through. Yeah.
Did you know this fictional character was totally not... No. What is his name? Wilhelm von Homburg. This is the guy who plays Vigo the Carpathian. He's also in Die Hard. Mm-hmm. He's one of the goons in Die Hard. He's in this movie. This guy was... he was the son of a Nazi, which is not, I'm not necessarily saying that's exactly his viewpoints. Not starting off good, though, but he was a terrible racist. At some point, they're like 99% sure that he raped his own stepmother. Like, he is
Holy
a fucking...
shit.
Dude, he is a terrible person. Like, the article that I read is literally like it's something like the not short enough lived miserable life of Wilhelm von Homburg. And I was like, holy hell. Like, I started reading this thing and I was like, Jesus, like, he was a wrestler and turned into a pro boxer and was just prone to beating the fuck out of people and like prostitution and stuff. I was like, holy shit, this guy's a monster in real life. Like, it is so fitting that he played Vigo, because I was like, that is nuts.
He didn't even know he was in a movie.
Right, yeah. He's like, well, some people I can spike. Because they said that was something
Scourge
they didn't...
of Moldavia, whatever the fuck it says.
He didn't know that he was going to be overdubbed by Max von Sydow. I didn't know that either. I didn't know that for the longest time, that was Father Merrin from The Exorcist. I had no idea. And they said when he heard it in the theater, he threw a fucking fit and like stormed out and shit, was super pissed off. The guy was... That's
when you look at his line delivery in this movie, because it's very jarring when you see that face and you're like, is that Vigo? And then he starts talking and you're like, there just a few scenes later, he's like, when Sam Neill encounters him in the bar later, he has this line that should be a really haunting line. He's got all these injuries all over himself and he says, this was done by a 5-year-old. My 5-year-old, like his kid did this to him, but the way he says it, it's just like this. This was done by a 5-year-old, my 5-year-old. It was like, Carpenter's like, cut. Do you want to try that again with punctuation? Just what?
Dude, especially when they get into the bar and he's like, you're good. You're really good. And he's like, hey, this ain't no tourist town. I'm like, dude, what the fuck is your voice? Like, what is this?
Oh,
Like, I know you
should have seen my face.
Fucked my stepmother.
I know. Dude, it was fucking...
Now I don't feel bad saying, like, I wasn't going to say anything. Like, he's pretty terrible in this, and I was going to keep my mouth shut. But if he's a piece of shit, then, yeah, on top of it, he's a bad actor, too.
Chris, we have no subtlety here at Midnight Double Feature, so...
Oh, no. I've somehow I've managed to talk more shit about Julie Carmen than Wilhelm von Homburg in this movie. I don't know how, but, I mean, talking about people being gigantic pieces of shit. I mean, he is just a terrible person. Read about him sometime. I mean, it's just awful. He was very fitting for Vigo. Well,
she was famously a Nazi too, and it's just
yeah, there you go. Now I feel justified. No. As they examine the church, the mob of locals come storming up. A young boy appears in the doorway, but is quickly replaced with the arrival of Sutter Kane, played by Jürgen Prochnow. A mob of grown-ass and well-armed men are somehow quickly chased off by a gang of vicious Dobermans. I was like, dude, there's like 7 of you with guns. Like, I'm not saying shoot animals, but like, if I have a gun in my hand and it's the choice between that or being viciously mauled, I'm like, I mean, I hate to do this, but fuck, dude. Like, that part cracks me up because they're all fucking packing. Some of them have like blunt weapons, and literally one of them just goes and shoots their gun, and it's before they even see if the shot hit, they all just turn and start running. I'm like,
I think it's Vigo. I think he's the one that just fires his gun not in any particular direction, and then just
What the fuck?
I'm watching this, and he's just like, and just takes.
There's no expression on his face either. He doesn't look panicked. It's like they were doing a rehearsal just to make sure the gun worked.
Oh God, that's so fucking funny, dude. It's the goofiest part of the movie that just cracks me the fuck up, dude.
Think about me watching this last night. Like, I'm watching it last night for the first time ever. You've given me so many like weird questions. Like, my mind is in. It's going a million miles an hour because there's just so many questions that I have right now. And then you get this weird, wacky gunfire sequence, and then it's just like, it's Vigo the Carpathian with this weird accent. I'm just like, what is happening right now? Like, where am I?
Yeah. But yeah, this is where they get chased off by the Dobermans. These guys, apparently there was quite a bit of stitches put in with these dogs. Like, they had padding. I mean, you could fucking tell when they tackle the guys and they go after the arms and the ankles. But they said they got through that padding quick. They're like,
John Carpenter hates actors. Holy shit.
I know, right? Apparently, it's just like at the end of Halloween, he actually let him get shot and then stabbed in the eye. It was terrible.
That's why Michael Myers is played by a different actor in most of the movies.
Yeah. He's like, so when do I get paid? They're like, come with us. Like, we have to film this scene right now.
No, you know what? Obviously, I'm making jokes about John Carpenter, but this is also just kind of the nature of making a movie like this, and especially at this point in time where if you wanted to do something like that, you had to do it for real. And so, again, I'm cracking a lot of jokes about all of the injuries, but this feels like pretty minimal stuff considering how ambitious a lot of the stuff they were going for was. And like you said, Colin, on a very small budget too, which also must have meant probably a more accelerated schedule than a lot of other films at this point were enjoying.
Dude, like 28 days they filmed this movie. I was like, holy shit. Like, you didn't even film for a whole month. I mean, and most of it takes place, it's like 3 locations with pretty much the same people. It's not a very big cast, but I was like, God damn, dude. Like, I think, again, this is a testament to how great Carpenter is with a smaller budget and a smaller cast. Like, I think he just thrives. Some people just thrive when they have little. Like, I think George Lucas is one of those. I kind of think Jordan Peele might be becoming one of those people, honestly, after seeing Us versus like Get Out. I was like, I don't want him to, and then, that's a totally different episode, but still, I kind of personally feel I can see Jordan Peele kind of slip into that. But,
well, I also just want to, there's a lot of goofy stuff about this sequence, but and the gunshot killed me. That was hilarious. That's a bizarre sentence I just said out of context. The gunshot killed me. It was hilarious. That part especially is really goofy. But with all the dogs, I don't know if they're going for some kind of Hounds of Hell thing here. Like, the idea itself is not terrible, and I was really impressed. Just from a filmmaking standpoint of there's like you see maybe 3 Dobermans at first, and then there's like 3 more, and then 3 more. And I was like, holy shit, somebody actually had to wrangle all of these dogs. Like the scale of it was more than I was expecting when the sequence first started. But yeah, I lukewarm on the execution. The movie's trying to tell me these things are more vicious and this is more dire than what is actually happening. But I am still really impressed with I just, the filmmaker in me can't get over like what do you do when you have like 12 Dobermans you're trying to wrangle for a shot?
Yeah, I'm like, dude, give me some Great Danes. At least that shit, I'm like, holy fuck. Like, those things are massive and terrifying.
Also, I do love this as the first appearance of Sutter Kane. I love that actor. I think he also is a little short-shifted by the movie in the end, but what just really striking features and just a lot of just screen presence for days. I really like him, and this is a really cool reveal of him.
I like Jurgen Prochnow as Sutter Kane. I think it's cool, but if I could cast any other people, if I had dream casting for this, either Lance Henriksen or Rutger Hauer. I was like, dude, I would love to see Rutger Hauer because for one thing, he's also physically imposing as well. I think Rutger Hauer's like, at this time, he probably would have been like 6'2" or 6'3". He's a big ass dude. And dude, I'll put fucking Lance Henriksen in anything. I'll put him in Men in Black, Matilda, Steel Magnolias. I don't care. I fucking love Lance Henriksen. He's one of my favorite actors. So I was like, of course I'm going to put him in this. But what did you think about the reveal of Sutter Kane here, Zoheb?
Yeah, man, I definitely dug it because I was like, I knew Jurgen Prochnow was going to be in it. And I'm not overly. Look, I'm not going to say I'm like a aficionado of his movies or anything like that.
You run his fan club. You've got that fan. The
Prochnow Club. Yeah, for sure. But I knew he was going to be in it, and I was just like, I wonder who he's playing. And I was like, oh, of course, he's playing Sutter Kane. But I definitely love the reveal. I love his little like smile.
I think he's so creepy. He's so good in this.
Yeah, it's awesome, dude. Like that smile that he gives before the doors close at the end, and then the Dobermans just chase those guys. It's awesome. I know Jurgen Prochnow from fucking Judge Dredd.
Oh, yeah.
Also written by Mike DeLuca, you guys.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, good God. But yeah, he was also in Dune, David Lynch's Dune. He played Duke Leto Atreides. So, but yeah, he's been in some shit, man. I dug it. I definitely dug this reveal.
No, yeah, I like Jurgen Prochnow just fine. I don't love some of his choices, but like Chris said, he's very shortchanged by this. For somebody who's our big bad, I kind of like the less is more approach, but it doesn't feel like they have something good and they're doing less is more than that. It just seems like we're doing less is more because we only got 90 minutes, you know. We have Trent and Linda leaving. They go back to the hotel. An argument ensues between the two. Trent claims that the entire event is a publicity stunt by Arcane to sell a few more million copies. Well, fuck that. I'm like, dude, I love that line delivery. That's great. And this is where Linda, like I said, she's saying, yes, this was a setup. We sent Kane away, only he never came back. We weren't supposed to find anything. This is how I know all this is for real, Trent. It's really happening. I'm like, oh God, this is the part I like cringe at, because that's actually a pivotal moment. It's really fucking pivotal to what's going on, because now you're like, dude, holy shit. Like she's being kind of honest with you. Like she's really showing her hand here, and she's obviously terrified because, rightfully so, but God, her delivery takes me out of this so bad. But Trent says he will hunt someone down in the town to talk and expose the whole thing before Linda finally admits the truth. He's right. Well, half right. They did send Kane away. Blah blah. This all I just went over. They discussed that these are scenes from the new book and what it is about. It is the end of the world, the end of everything. Stiles says the best thing to do is to get a hold of the book, get to the end, and figure a way out of there. Trent refuses and leaves. Basically tries to leave. This is where he bumps into Miss Pickman. This is one of my favorite shots of the movie, him down in the lobby with Miss Pickman. And one of the most absolutely terrifying. But before we get into those, how about you guys, let's take a break for a minute, if you guys are cool with that?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Awesome, guys. We will be back with the second part of our coverage of John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, so we'll be right back.
Well, look who made it this far into the episode. Just while we're taking a quick break here, we've got a few things that we just wanted to put out there for any newcomers, or if you're not part of our growing community, maybe this could benefit you too. Firstly, we just want to let the newbies know about our episodes and the way Midnight Double Feature currently is structured. As you know, right now you're listening to one of our feature presentations. When we started the podcast, we basically built the show around our feature presentations. These are movies that we choose to cover and basically go through everything in the movie that's worth talking about sequentially. These episodes are generally longer, and we're definitely looking at ways to spice up our feature presentations by hopefully getting guests on. We also have our upcoming attractions episode. Typically, these come out during the week and are much more shorter than our feature presentations. These are hosted by Matt Vella and basically consist of a conversation between Matt and I about any movie news that's worth talking about, quick reviews of movies that are out of the cinema, and other hijinks. Finally, we have our special features. These are usually one-off special episodes that are mostly experimental and don't really have any specific definition. They could be a sit-down with a cast or crew member, a conversation between the hosts, or just a straight-up different thing that might not even relate to film. Before I let you get back to the episode, I just wanted to thank our listeners and supporters. We definitely couldn't have done any of this without your guys' constant support. If, for some reason, you're not a part of our growing community, head to our socials. We've got 2 pages on Facebook, Midnight Double Feature, which is our main page and has our formal announcements, and we also have the After Party, which is where we post memes, news, and teasers of what's to come on Midnight Double Feature. We're also on Instagram, which is at Midnight Double Feature, and Twitter, which is at MDFPod. You can also send us an email if you have any grievances or would like to let us know what we're doing wrong. That's midnightdoublefeature@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, guys. Back to the show.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are here with our coverage of the second half of John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. As you heard on the first half, we've got Chris from Hey Do You Remember? Chris was just like, oh my God, you guys are so great. Can I please come on your podcast? And we were like, all right, dude, yeah, just calm down. Stop driving by my house. Stop calling me.
So just like the movie, we've got multiple realities going here, I see.
Yeah. But this is, where we left off here is their argument about all this being real. This is where Trent decides to go into town and find someone who's going to tell him what's going on. This shit with Miss Pickman is fucking terrifying. Like, this shit is disturbing. Is like, I think the best, like, to the nth degree disturbing. But, he's talking about looking at the painting and, he's saying, oh, yeah, you look like you've been up all night. She's like, been reading, like she's so maniacal in this. She's terrifying to me, especially when he's talking to her about the painting. He's like, oh, did you paint that? She's like, hell no. Like, I love like her delivery there. And she's just Frances Bay. I think that's her name, Zoha.
Yep.
Yeah, she's just fantastic in this, especially the shot when I think Trent's back is turned, and you hear the noise from her husband, handcuffed to her ankle, and then as Trent starts getting closer, she's looking down, she looks up, and the camera zooms in, and she kind of leans over the counter, like oh my God, it is the scariest fucking shot of this whole thing to me. Those huge big bug eyes of hers, and she's got the bags under her eyes, like that shit is terrifying. Especially once it's revealed, like her husband, like that naked old man on the floor. I was like, as a kid, I was like, that scares the hell out of me. I was like something about just that old man being naked. I was like, is there something sexual going on here? Like, what the fuck is happening?
Hey man, you don't stop liking the kinky shit when you're old. Come on.
Yeah, that's true. Fuck it. It's just they're just in like a BDSM relationship. Like, hey, that's cool, whatever. Because I think also with her earlier, when he lights up the cigarette, she's like, oh, no smoking. It bothers my husband. Blah blah blah. Like, she seems so nice and sweet, but then it's like, oh fuck, like there he is on the floor. Stiles takes off with the car and heads for the church, where she finally finds Kane writing on his novel. For years, I thought I was making all this up, but they were telling me what to write. Kane reveals the door holding the old ones back in his newest additions to the novel, which causes Stiles' eyes to bleed. Really cool low-budget effect. A lot of this stuff was super low budget. At the beginning, when the lights all start dimming and stuff, that's just like a basic household light dimmer. They were just turning it up and down. They're like, we had to go real low budget on some stuff.
So this is where I started thinking that maybe he was a prophet, because like just the whole like think about where they are. They're in this church or like kind of like the cathedral or whatever, and then it's just like, well, they're telling me what to write. Like, I guess I was partially right? Like, I don't like he is very prophetic in his character.
No, for sure. I just didn't want to ruin it for you, but yeah, you're like dead on the money. You know, he, when does, even earlier on, they're like, when does fiction become reality and are his fans dangerous? Or no, when does fiction become religion? And, are his fans dangerous? And he talks about being a prophet of the printed page. And then you've got him talking about his books are more popular than the Bible and shit now. Like, you were definitely right. I was like, I'm going to let him, I mean, he's dead on the money, but I'm not giving him the satisfaction yet.
I called it, dude. Called it.
And this effect of Styles looking down, that's just like a hole in the table they cut, and they just pumped a light and a fan through it, and then that was it. I was like, holy hell, that's awesome. But her kind of like embracing him, and then
this is good. This is such a great reveal,
man. That thing living on the back of him,
and she's like stroking it as she kisses him. It's really great. God, it's so creepy.
It's crazy, man. Like this is the thing effects, right? Like Carpenter's signature shit. I also just don't want to quickly go past the inverted cross in the church.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah. Like very, very telling.
Oh yeah, for sure. Back at the hotel, Trent is startled by Styles, who collapses after saying, Trent, I'm losing me, Trent. Like that again, her delivery right there, just like. I actually like the line, I'm losing me. I'm like, that's fucking cool. I like that.
Yeah, that's really creepy. I have to say, everything from her finally coming face to face with Kane from this point on, I think this is where the movie becomes flat out incredible. Like, there's a lot of stuff in the early moments that I could see are going to be, if you're just seeing it for the first time, like, okay, this part's a little cheesy and there are some stretches you just kind of have to get through. But all of that build up, like, this is where everything really starts paying off. And even though there's still a decent amount of movie left to cover, this is where it really starts moving at a clip too. I mean, this whole last section of the film is so fucking good. Carpenter has such control over the tone and the pacing of all of this. I love all this. Everything,
it's like an extended climax.
Yeah.
No, yeah, all of the shit, especially from Miss Pickman, and then we finally see like Jurgen Prochnow, and he gets to do a little bit here, and then we're cutting back to Trent at the hotel, where she comes back, she kind of collapses, and he goes to get on the phone. The phone lines are cut. He's ringing the bell. He's like, "Come on, where are you, you old bitch?" Like, I fucking love that line. It always makes me laugh. And this is where, they see the Miss Pickman, thing monster in the bottom. I was like, dude, that's
Jesus.
This is cool. And this is the thing that's like obviously most visually similar to some of the effects from The Thing, even though those are in a whole other class of their own. That's like Rob Bottin. It's just a different caliber. The K&B stuff is very good. And again, they're working on a budget, so they're trying to stretch every dollar. But this Mrs. Pickman creature, this is a really, really good effect. And one of the things Greg Nicotero, who is the N in K&B, that he was saying about this was that you can't tell so much in the finished cut of the film, but that the husband is still in there all wrapped up with tentacles, like all intertwined and shit. He's in there, and like that's, part of the thing that she's fucking chopping up. And so the way that there are human screams kind of mixed in or coming in and out of these more otherworldly, like the shrieking and stuff you hear in there, this is just disturbing as fuck. I mean, this is pretty well done, even for like, some of the effects in this don't hold up as well as others. And there's maybe a couple moments here where they linger on the shot just a little too long. But overall, I was really surprised. I thought this was going to look a lot more dated than it does.
No, yeah, this whole thing with her, holding the axe and her being kind of like Cthulhu'd out. That definitely reminded me of the end of The Thing, and they they went with a less is more kind of approach with that. I think they did like claymation originally at the beginning or at the end of The Thing, and they went with that. I think it's a miniature at the end of The Thing. I think I know that John Carpenter has this prop of Mrs. Pickman in his office now, like her with the tentacles all out.
That's amazing, and you know why it's really amazing? Because now it is literally Pickman's model.
Oh, that's fucking great. It's all connected. And this shit, when he runs back upstairs and he's talking to Styles, the whole thing of like the tentacles under the floor, I was like, dude, that's so The Void. I'm pretty sure that's a scene in The Void. Like, I think you were talking about that earlier, weren't you, Zohab?
Yeah. I mean, like, talking about films that Colin loves.
Oh, hell yeah,
The
dude.
Void is definitely one of them. And honestly, like, the tone of this reminded me of The Void as well. Like, just that sense of, like, the world is going to end kind of thing, like the whole dread. Yeah, it's definitely very similar.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is where she fucking bitch smacks the fuck out of Trent and sends him through that door. Which is, I'll get to that later. It's kind of funny later on, but like, there's a little bit of like, wait, what? But yeah, this is where she sends him, she sends him flying through the door. He attempts to escape in the car. He makes his way into the town where the locals have formed a circle in the middle of the road. And Trent goes and hides in the bar as he continues to deny the images before him. And he bumps into Vigo, the piece of shit Carpathian. Apparently Simon, I guess, is his name. I had no idea. They never say
it's Vigo.
It's Vigo, fucking. But I love what he's saying here. I can't remember what came first, us or the town. I was like, that's fucking cool, dude. I really love it. I love Sam Neill chucks that bar mug and he doesn't even blink. He's like, I don't care anymore. Like he has no reaction to that. This is not reality. We are not living in a Sarah Kane story. And this is, where Simon, he puts that shotgun under his chin. He's like, no, don't do it. He's like, I have to. Kane wrote me this way.
That's that's one of those great lines that I was talking about earlier. I love that part.
I have a question for you both. So do you think, okay, and although we already acknowledged that this is one of the best aspects of the film, do you think that maybe Trent is cynical for a bit too long? Like I feel like by this point, maybe he's just denying it because he's just, I don't know, that's who he is. But it's just like, I feel like at this point he should be on board with it, right?
Like his denial is running on too long.
Yeah, I feel like it's going on for a bit long. Like I feel like
I can see that for sure, but I also think this is also a very human reaction where it becomes a different kind of denial. There's like the cynicism at the beginning of just like, cheap marketing stunt. And then I think the same way that any one of us, when confronted with imagery or scenarios like this, it's just like and it's actually a very Lovecraftian thing, the way you're kind of clutching to your own sanity these last few shreds of it before even that gets ripped away from you. But I see what you're saying, that because the whole thing has been about that like it would be interesting if the way they had played it is like he keeps reciting that again and again and again. He keeps trying to reassure himself that this isn't real, but you can see him, even as he's saying those words, believing them less and less.
Right. It kind of becomes this thing where it's just like he's denying it just because he's scared. He's afraid to believe.
Right, yeah, and I think especially such for a guy whose job is spotting out the bullshit of finding the con and be like, no, this is what's really going on. I think that's another huge reason why he's in denial for so long, because he's never come across a problem like this before, as far as he knows,
or one that he couldn't eventually get to the bottom of. Like, I mean, like you said, that's what he does, and so and maybe like the moment he caves is when they all come out and say gotcha, and he's still determined to, no, I'm going to find the part of this you weren't clever enough to conceal.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure. And I like this when he comes out of the bar and he's staring at them. That one, like, for lack of a better term, like Cenobite from fucking Hellraiser just runs up with the axe like, fuck you, and runs off.
That's so random. The one that doesn't even have a mouth.
I belly laughed.
They did it. They could have 80-yard anything, and or better yet, nothing. But it's like, you know what, this is missing.
Let's get no mouthy McMouthfuck over here to say this, because like just walking up and saying fuck you, like I would have just anything running up and just this like just like crazy shit would have been awesome.
I just would have lost my mind if it was like fuck you asshole from Commando.
Let off some steam. But yeah, this whole thing honestly had me laughing out loud when he runs out to the car and Styles like punches him in the face. He just comes right back and punches her.
This is ridiculous.
Like, what the fuck? Because what's hilarious is that she obviously is extremely powerful now. She just sent you flying through a door and she punches you in the face and you're just like, nope, and just hit her right back. I was like, what the fuck? It's like, that's just kind of like, I know that we have to take Styles with us, that we're not at the point of where it's like, fuck you, bye. Like, I'm leaving you here. But like, just walking up and knocking her out with a punch, I was like, that's just silly, dude. It's like, obviously she's not, I don't know. It's like, if it were that easy, I think you would just would have punched her back at the hotel, but whatever. And it's super silly because, you know, they get back into the car, her eating the fucking keys. I was like, oh, fuck, man. Like, they're apparently made of pasta, by the way. I bet they're a delicious baked ziti. No, but like...
His reaction to that is incredible.
Yes, dude. Oh, man. So he's mortified by her doing this. But she eats the keys. He's trying to hotwire the car, stuff, and he just punches her in the face again. I'm like, dude, come on, you're gonna give her brain damage, dude. Like, you gotta stop just punching people. Of course, because he punches her and she's in like movie knockout mode, where she's out for like the next 20 minutes as they're driving away. I'm like, dude, you have massive like bleeding in your brain from that. If you're out for like 20 minutes, I'm like, that's not good. But this is where Trent hotwires the car, and they haul ass out of town. As they make their way out of town, Styles forces Trent to stop the car, where she contorts her body and chases him around before leaving.
Oh my god, dude! Fucking Reagan from The Exorcist. This is so wild. Like, and it's not really the movements for me. It's the sound effects. Like, the sound effects for me are what got me.
Oh, especially her, like her kind of little laughs. It's like, oh, fuck you, man. Like, I'm sorry. Like, now is the time you start throwing punches, dude. It's like, because I mean, don't get me wrong. When she first pops her head out, she's like, Kane has a job for you. And then she starts walking around the car. I'm like, holy shit, that looks great. And then as she gets closer, I'm like, that is definitely an upside down Julie Carmen mask. I was like, that is really,
they linger on this a little too long too.
They do.
Right. Well, and it's like, Once this is all over and he gets in the car and he's leaving again, and we cue kind of what I call this Groundhog Day effect of him trying to, and it's just, you know, repeating and putting him back in the same spot, of her being on the back of the bike with the kid now and like sticking her arms out. I was like, that is a great image. Yeah. That is so fucking good.
You know, there's just a couple moments here with the Mrs. Pickman effect and the contortionist thing where it's like, you know, the key thing about a lot of Lovecraft stuff and what makes it so scary, both to the protagonists in those stories, the reason so many of them are driven insane, and then just when you're adapting that stuff, it's the fear of the unknown and also never quite having a strong sense of exactly what you're looking at. Like, it breaks your brain. That's like what drives a lot of them crazy is you can't comprehend what you're looking at. And so the movie could have used a little bit more of that, like, because even The Thing has that, where you're not always, I mean, that's what's so fucking gross and cool about all of the creature effects in that film, is it's just like, oftentimes there's no frame of reference. It's just really unsettling. The first Alien movie works for that same reason. And so just a hint of the body contortion stuff where you're just like, it doesn't even have time to sink in. It just leaves you with this really unsettling feeling of like, something was off, and kind of like more what they do to the end, where I think some of the most successful stuff with all the big climax with all the monsters, some of it is too clearly in focus and or they get it close-ups of, but anytime it's out of focus behind him, when it's like, it's perfect. And just so a couple of more, that sort of stuff would have worked better, I think, with all of the effects in this, not keeping them out of focus. That's not what I'm saying. That'd be ridiculous. But like, but I'm saying, but just giving us the hint of it, just enough to sell the effect, but not so much that we have time to sit here and go. And then, it was clearly an actress doing like a backwards, handspring wearing this rubber mask.
I was definitely thinking about that while watching this movie because, Chris, I just, like I said off air, I was just listening to your Hellboy episode that you guys just dropped. And you guys were talking about how they did the effect for those Sam Hale creatures.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that too. Yeah, the timing of this is crazy.
Yeah, I know. And like you mentioned that, like, you at first you don't fully know what you're looking at. Like, you don't fully know the proportions of it. You don't know the dimensions, and it's just kind of like this weird sort of like the first time you register it, it's just like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah,
and that works so much more. That works so much better if it's lit a bit more, sort of like, I guess, mysteriously. And I do agree. I think like towards the end of this film, it takes away from what he's trying to achieve, really.
One thing I thought was funny is there's a bit of trivia where there's the scene where Trent throws the glass in the bar. And Carpenter jokingly said that this was retaliation for the earlier instance where Neil was caught by the window. Because Carpenter's like, I was sitting right in front of him and a little piece of glass went right in my eye. He's like seconds after he throws the six, he's like, part of me was like, he do that shit on purpose. Like, there's IMDb trivia that's so funny. The scene where Styles exits the car with her head upside down was shot with a contortionist. I'm like, no. Really? I thought they just got Mr. Fantastic and got him off on a weekend or something. And they're like, hey, come on down. We need you in the mouth of madness. No, that shit is so fucking goofy, dude. But yeah, this whole thing with him, he makes it back to the town. He's just repeating, like you said, at some point, I think it's just enough denial, because when when it physically starts to alter what his reality, I think that's when he's like, okay,
this is the point for sure. When he and I love the effect of this too. I remember the first time not the first time, when I watched this again when I was in college, when it got to this part of him trying to leave town and they keep cutting back to that shot of him arriving at the center of town. I like out loud, I was just like, oh fuck, like this is when a bad situation gets a lot fucking worse. Like I think this all works really well, but certainly this is the point where he as a character has to start grappling with the fact that there is no logical explanation for this anymore. You're not going to find one.
Right, because when he first starts this, when it first happens, he's like, oh, just took a wrong left or right somewhere and wound
He's
up
going
right
in a straight line. I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere.
Right. I did actually forget about this. Carpenter recalls that the Pickman Hotel is a home built by a man for his wife, but she died en route to America and he turned it into a shrine of sorts. I was like, oh, that's kind of sad, kind of sweet at the same time, kind of Taj Mahal-ish in a way.
That's creepy, is what I
that is
what I think.
Chris, like, I'm not sleeping at this place.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially with this scene scene later. No, we already passed it. Where she first goes to see Sutter Kane, the Doberman kept going off the wrong way like 15 times to the point where they're like, all right, fuck this. Like they ended up swapping it out with a different dog or something. It was the same thing with the three-legged dog. This three-legged dog, the first one they had, ran off like miles into the countryside and they couldn't find it and just had to get like a different dog to finish the scene out with. But yeah, especially this whole thing, him crashing the car, him like waking up in the confession booth. I think a great effect. Did you notice the match head?
No.
Anybody? Yeah, when he goes to strike the match head, it's fucking blue. I was like, dude, when do you ever see a blue match head? Huh. Like, I've never had a pack of matches. I'm sure there's somewhere out there that exist, but I was like, dude, almost always are they fucking red. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like, I didn't catch that the first time around. But yeah, he wakes up in the confession booth and finally meets Sutter Kane. They discuss problems with religion and the true nature of creation. Trent struggles to hold on to his sanity as he looks for the con. I love that. He's like, God's not supposed to be a hack horror writer. and he even, like, right at the end, he's like, yeah, well, anyways, your books suck. I was like, now you're just clutching at straws, dude. Like, you know what's going on.
Well, at this point, dude, I was just like, okay, so I'm thinking that he's less of a prophet and he's more of the devil. Like I'm getting some really like devil's advocates vibes right now. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
Like,
because he even says, he's like, or later on in the bus, he's like, I'm a god now. You understand? And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, dude, that's
Yeah.
fucking terrifying. But Kane has finally finished In the Mouth of Madness and tells Trent that he has been chosen to deliver it. You are what I write. Like this town, it wasn't here before I wrote it, and neither were you. What did you guys think about this revelation? Like, is this something that, like, especially I'm curious because you have kind of an older opinion, so do I, but also Zohab. Like, what did you guys think of this revelation that Trent was just this character that had been written in? Did you see this coming, or was this a total surprise?
It wasn't as surprising to me as I thought it would be. Like when they did the reveal, I was just like, oh, okay. I felt, I don't know, because it all kind of like ties into how he's recounting it from the start, right? Like if he's not recounting the story, if we just jump right into this story and it's not like a flashback or something like that, then maybe I would have been a bit more surprised. But I feel like after seeing that opening with him being in the asylum, it lessened it for me, and I feel like I kind of saw it coming a little bit. What about you, Chris?
So that reminds me that I think that the whole intro in the asylum, it's there because there are so many Lovecraft stories that start in a really similar way. I just feels like that's the only reason it's there. And I have wondered, not just on this viewing, but on other viewings of the movie, if there were aspects of this that would work better if it didn't start that way, if we just went right into the story and it wasn't bookended by that stuff. It's weird. It's like it's not that I saw it coming the first time I watched this, because I don't think I did. I think it's just that I still didn't feel anything of that being a big twist. And now that I'm older, I understand why. And it goes back to what I said at the beginning, which is Sam Neill is great. This character does not make enough of an impression for me this isn't a heartbreaking reveal. So again, if it becomes, if you establish him as a person that I am invested in before this moment, then this means something. When he's just a cipher, when he's just, they
don't do enough.
Yeah, that it's hard to feel anything for him.
I think the twist regarding Arcane Publishing and like how they set up the like some of the stuff like Kane being missing, I think that worked for me a little bit better than this twist for some reason, because I think that actually had I don't know, like that doesn't really affect any like one character or anything, but I didn't see that coming. Whereas this one was a bit, I don't know, it was just less impactful because I, like you actually, Chris, definitely not as invested in the character of Trent as I should be.
Well, what I think, honestly, now that I'm older watching this, and what I thought would be awesome if it was something where Sutter Kane's like, this town didn't exist, and I wrote it in, and I tried to write somebody in to take this book to the masses, but like I just for whatever reason I couldn't do that. I had to have a real person do it. Like in order for me to take the fictional into reality, I had to bring a little bit of reality into the fiction and then bring it out. It's kind of like in Nightmare on Elm Street, you can grab an article in your dream and bring it into reality with you, but you have to be holding on to it. Like something like that. I would have loved if you were like, I can only force characters that I've written to do something, but you're a real person, and you're going to take this back to me, back to the world for whatever reason. And I would have loved that. I'm not sure exactly. I mean, hey, not a screenwriter, not 100% sure how I would work that out, but I would like that if there was something in there about Trent where he's like, I've chosen you because you're somebody that, is this skeptical person. If I can break you and make you deliver this book, then I can do that to anybody. Then I truly do have this like power over shit. I don't know. I kind of
no. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I just wish it hadn't have been, I wrote you, and I understand that Trent's journey is the book In the Mouth of Madness, that's what everybody's reading, and they're reading about John Trent, and that it gets so meta that it's like, well, how is this guy reading the book, when he comes out and he chops that guy up with an axe, it isn't even done yet. Like, it's not finished. You're not to that point in the story. I was like, how is this even, like, logically, it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Right.
I wish it had actually not been, John Trent was this fictional thing that he just wrote, because he, if that's really the whole point of bringing this text to the masses and bringing on Armageddon, there's a hell of a lot easier way to do it.
Except, so what I kind of like about what you just said, though, is that so at this point now, reality is really folding in on itself. And so it's not that, like, how did all of this exist when the book wasn't even finished yet, when, like, well, no, but I think that's the whole point, because I think the book In the Mouth of Madness is also about the writing of the book In the Mouth of Madness. And so him as the protagonist of that story in the novel, it starts the same way, like, that we're already in the novel at that point. We don't realize it because he doesn't realize it. But even the novel In the Mouth of Madness it's meta in that way. So it just, like I said, it's all folding in on itself. Now, as far as the twist goes, I think one interesting thing they could have done that would be perfectly in line with all the other themes they're playing with here is if Sutter Kane tells him, you're just another character in this story. I created the town, I created you. And there's a rejection of that idea, which, Sam Neill, that moment is here. But what I'm saying is, if then the movie didn't aggressively go out of its way to show that is 100% true, it's irrefutable. If even just the question being posed by Sutter Kane of, are you real or did I write you? If that's enough to fuck with you, if that's the part that's fucking with him, and that's also another part of this that's driving him crazy, that Sutter Kane doesn't need to keep fucking with him after that, that even just leaving him with that kernel of a possibility that you are not real, there is no free will, you don't have any agency, even when you think you're making a choice, this is something you've already done it because I created it. And then just the not knowing if he's telling the truth or not, I think that could have been an interesting way to approach it as well. But then the other thing that, just hearing you talk about this, Colin, what this just reminded me of is there's also another way to read this, which is as, like, kind of a metaphor for the writing process itself. And so what that makes me think of is anytime I've been working on something and there's this classic battle every writer is going to face at some point where, and a lot of bad writing will just go ahead and do it. And that's where your characters start doing stuff, not because it's what they would actually do, but because what your story requires them to do. This is a really bad decision they need to make in this moment to advance the plot. But an audience bristles at it because you go, like, no one would ever fucking do that. And specifically, this character would never do that because of all this other stuff you've established about him. So this feels like that moment for Sutter Kane writing a character who he set up to be cynical and question everything. And now these things he needs him to do to advance the plot, the character is standing there going, like, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't say that. It feels like that part of the writing process personified. So that's I think,
super fucking meta.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, this thing is like the Russian nesting dolls, dude. They're just like one inside the other. It's like, if we're watching the movie In the Mouth of Madness, and then at the end John Trent is watching the movie In the Mouth of Madness, then that means at the end of that movie John Trent is watching John Trent watch John Trent. Like, it gets inside itself. But that's what I think is interesting actually about it, is that when you get, I think once you hit where you're just like stuck in that kind of loop, that's when I can just see everything just kind of like, and just collapsing in on itself, just like not able to sustain reality, like doing that, like time and space and reality were not meant to sound like I'm listing off Infinity Stones. No, to like time and space and reality were not meant to do something like that. So I can see like the natural order of things, like nature, and just being like, no, existence just collapses in on itself. I think that's really cool. But I think there is just something kind of like lacking there. I know that, I mean, obviously if he just makes it an A to B, I have a guy who is on magical roller skates and he can fly straight into the city and bring my book to the people. That's super boring. And obviously, like, no one's going to lose their mind over that thing. So I think that's also part of the reason why this kind of works for me a little bit, is because the people reading it are now questioning, am I real? Like, am I this real person? Like, if Kane's effect is if Kane's writing has this much effect and this much power, then I think that that's what's causing people to lose their minds, is they kind of walk away saying, like, am I real? It's almost kind of Blade Runner and Deckard-ish, you know, whereas Deckard would say, it doesn't matter if I'm a replicant or a human being. What matters is that I'm alive. You know, Sam Neill's like, no, fuck that. He's like, this is very important. And I think it's more important in this than Blade Runner. But I would have loved to have seen a couple of lines where he's like, can you remember anything before, meeting Robbie and interrogating this guy?
I don't think it needs to go that far with it. And that's why I would, because the idea that this mass hysteria with people experiencing kind of the same thing, I think that's so great. And that's why I think leaving it slightly ambiguous for Trent as well would also have been a cool decision, so that you don't need the moment of him, you know, when he thinks he maybe is back in reality, but he's not sure. That's a different kind of madness than waking up on the bus and there's Sutter Kane right next to you, just telling you, no. You can't ever really escape. I'm in control of all this. I'm saying it would have been a lot creepier and more effective to not have hit that, not make that so clearly what's happening. I like him leaving that room with Sutter Kane, running down that tunnel, inexplicably falling back into reality for no real reason, and then just being shook of like, is this even reality? And then just leave the question. Don't have Sutter Kane show back up and say, no, it's not. You're still I'm still the puppet master here. I just think that adds into where the ending is already going. Anyways, I don't want more in an ending that's like so completely about ambiguity. I don't want that part of it answered. And also the thing about, like, you know, asking questions of, can you remember anything before, you know, this point? This actually reminds me a lot of Dark City, when there's kind of a similar moment in that film. But the reason I think even here it would work is like, but any good writer has already worked out backstories for all of his characters. Trent would have those memories because Trent, the character in the book, the character as conceived by the author who created the character, there is a backstory there, presumably, you know, like that's, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I think you're totally right in keeping it vague, because I don't think that they keep it vague, especially when he wakes up and everything's blue and shit.
Exactly.
Like, I love that moment. It's great. Don't get me wrong. It's fucking just soul crushing and it's awesome. But if you could somehow make me believe that is strictly a dream, like that is not something, like he's just having a real legitimate nightmare after having this experience, I could totally believe this, but it comes across as so real that it's like, no, I mean, he kind of has to be a character. Like, this book keeps showing back up, like he's having these, you know, these flashes of Kane like showing up and stuff. But you know, this is to the part that we're at where he says that he denies that he's a fictional character, and he's not going to take back the novel. Kane tells Trent to leave, and he finally lets the old ones loose. The effect of him tearing himself apart, I was like, all right, that's 1994 for you, I guess. I don't know.
Oh,
like,
boy.
That is not. It's a cool effect. Like, I think it's cool in theory.
I like the idea.
But like, right, exactly. But it's like the execution is just kind of but the inside of that thing being the words and the pages and shit, I was like, I love that. That is awesome. This whole thing's made out of aluminum foil, by the way. I love the way that looks, this big hole being punched in it, because what she's saying is great. Trent stood at the edge of the rip, stared into the illimitable gulf of the unknown, to the Stygian world yawning blackly beyond. Trent's eyes refused to close. He did not shriek, but the hideous, unholy abomination shrieked for him, as in the same second he saw them spill and tumble upward out of an enormous carrion black pit, choked with the gleaming white bones of countless unhallowed centuries. He began to back away from the rip as the army of unspeakable figures the army of unspeakable figures, twilight by the glow from the bottomless pit, came pouring at him from our world. I'm like, God damn,
Jesus.
That's great. And that's some shit apparently ripped straight out of Lovecraft as well. I can't remember exactly the books that they reference from. It slipped my mind, but this whole thing of him running back through the passageway is just kind of forced perspective. Like, because at first, like, it's kind of funny. when I'm younger, I'm like, man, that tunnel looks forever. And then I'm watching it now, I'm like, that tunnel it's about 75 feet. I was like, it does not look like I get the idea of it. Again, the idea is cool. I just don't like that's where I'm like, is that a matte painting? That doesn't look like it goes on forever. Like you can kind of see the light at the end of the tunnel. Like it's supposed to be like he's running through this whole thing, but that does look like it's, and honestly, I would have been fine if it's like, hey, it's just this 100-foot clearing, but you better get the fuck out of here now before Cthulhu and his boys fucking jump you.
So I got a little bit of a funny story. So remember how I said that I'd never heard of this movie before? Like it was just completely new. One of the first ever screenshots I'd ever seen was probably like a couple of weeks ago when we started like talking about this film more and more. One of the first screenshots was literally Sam Neill, and in the background was that tunnel. And that tunnel, when taken out of context, looks like something from a futuristic science fiction standpoint. It looks like the inside of a spaceship or some shit. So I'm just like, I don't even know what genre this movie is. I thought it was a horror / drama. And now there's going to be science fiction elements into it. What is this?
No, yeah, that was super funny when we were talking about this. You're like, is this like a dark sci-fi movie? I was like, you're not wrong. I was like, it's not terribly off. Trent begins to run for the passageway back into his world, telling Styles to come with him, but she refuses, saying, I've already read to the end. Trent snaps back into our world, lost and in the middle of nowhere. Anybody know who this paperboy is?
Hayden Christensen.
Hayden Christensen. I would have loved to, because he says, hey, kid, you ever heard of a place called Hobbs End? I would have loved if he turned and was like, hey, kid, remember the high ground. just remember that.
Hayden Christensen and not a grain of sand to be seen. Just how he likes it.
It's funny because I don't like, as far as like a child acting goes here, like I don't mind him at all. I think he's just a kid on a bike delivering papers. Not really much to him, but like I like him right here. I was like, wow, I like him more in his feature film debut as like a 12-year-old paperboy than I ever did in 3 fucking movies where he's Darth Vader. Yeah, this is where he sees Hayden Christensen as the paperboy. Trent's hotel number is number 6. Like his world is being turned kind of upside down. Like
clever.
When he goes the package keeps finding him.
Didn't pick up on that.
This is where you get the thing keeps the novel keeps finding him. He wakes up on the bus. I'm God now. Don't you? My favorite color is blue. That is great, dude. His reaction is just.
You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of like a fucked up. Okay, look, and that movie's already fucked up anyway. A fucked up version of the Truman Show. Like you just can't escape. I dig it, and you're so aware of like what you're in. You're so dialed into what's happening, but you just can't get away from it like that. Like, I mean, The Truman Show is already a heartbreaking movie, but man, Sam Neill's reaction and like his acting here, especially in this bus, dude, totally got me. I was just like, fuck, you can't get away from this.
Right. The best way I can describe it is when you see everything blue and he starts screaming, I'm like, I feel like I'm suffocating. Like, I feel like I'm just like, like I can't fucking breathe, knowing that you're just like in this, it feels like you're just, it's like at the end of Men in Black when they're throwing the marbles and all the galaxies just in this little marble. It's like, you just feel like you're trapped in this fucking thing.
Yeah,
it's
he's
like, oh my God.
Making you feel like you're going crazy too. The way, and the fact that we're just transitioning from one location, one moment in time to another so rapidly. And like, it's really disorienting. It's got a really great effect.
No, yeah, absolutely. God, this whole scene is, I mean, and it's really, there's actually a couple of fucking hilarious memes where it's like when a human dies in a movie and it's just Sam Neill like smiling, and then it's like when a dog dies in a movie and it's him screaming his head off, like on the bus and shit. But yeah, and this is true. This is where we start getting more and more of like the blue everywhere, which is fucking great. Especially like when we're in Harglow's office here in a second, it is so fucking good. Like the blue, I mean, and this movie is already kind of saturated in that anyways. The tunnel sequence, like everything is like right there in front of you. It's super effective. I really like it. But actually, let me hit you guys with a track really quick.
Did I ever tell you my favorite color was blue?
God, him fucking screaming is so great. Like him snapping out of that is just fucking terrifying. That's one of my favorite parts of this movie. But yeah, Trent goes to Harglow's office. He says Trent delivered the manuscript to him months ago, and the book is already out, and the movie comes out next month. God, that is just fucking... I mean, the fact that your whole entire world is now just being rewritten left and right, and you have no memories of this, and like that is just... God, dude, I would feel just so lost. Like that's so fucking terrifying. And yeah, I love that. He's like, you know, you have to take this book off the shelves. It'll drive people mad. He's like, I hope so. He's like, the movie comes out next month. I'm like, oh, dude. Especially, like I said, the blues in this are just great. They're just drowning in it. Especially once you watch this scene compared to the one from the beginning. Like there is a little bit blue, but it's not that much. You're like, holy shit, this is fucking like really I feel like you're drowning in it. And this is where we finally see the event that led to Trent being institutionalized. I love everybody in that line. Like I said, every other person's got like the kid has a blue shirt on when he comes out. And he's like, oh, then this shouldn't come as any surprise, and just fucking chops him into pieces right there. Part of me wonders, what do you guys think? Do you think that this is him actually trying to stop the apocalypse, or is this Trent trying to get institutionalized so he can have like some type of wall between him and what's going on?
Chris, you go first, because I'm still trying to fucking think about this.
I mean, that's a cool idea, but the ending, him getting locked up makes it seem like he kicks the guard in the nuts. He doesn't want to be locked up. And then he also seems surprised when shit hits the fan at the end. Like he could stay in that facility if he's trying to protect himself. He makes the choice to walk out and start exploring. So I don't know that the intention was to try and... I think I don't know. I'm leaning more towards the former, not so much the latter. But this is another thing that might have been interesting if they'd played it more ambiguous.
Right. What do you think, Zoe?
Man, it's tough because he's so... the last like 10 minutes of this are some of my least favorite of the movie. I'm just going to put that out there because it's tough. Like there's evidence on both sides. I think he's given up. I think he's just kind of going with the flow now. He's just like, oh, look, you know, you shouldn't be surprised with what comes next, and I'm just going to get fucking locked up. And if that's my destiny, then that's my destiny. Like, you know, that's just how it's going to go. That's what's been written, so to speak.
No, for sure. What happens is, you know, maybe it starts with him like, I'm just going to start killing these motherfuckers. You know, he becomes Kane's agent in a way. You know, he's even got the big ass trench coat on and shit. So I think it starts off as that. But when he gets in there and he gets settled and he starts drawing all the crosses and stuff, Dr. Wren even says something. He goes, well, they'd almost have to keep you in here once they saw these, wouldn't they, John? And I'm like, are you insinuating like he knows how crazy this is? But I think once he gets there, he just realizes, wait, what the fuck am I doing? This is probably the best place for me to be, because I think the reason he leaves is once everything. I mean, for one thing, if he's a written character, all of this is pointless, anyways. He's being preordained by Kane's writing, but. You know, the thing of him leaving is like, well, I guess this place really isn't secure anymore. Like the whole thing is just fucking destroyed. And once I think the eye of the storm kind of, or the bulk of the storm hits them, and then he goes out into the world. I think he's just kind of like what you said, Zoe. He's like, fuck it. He's like, what's happening? He's like, I want to see what's going on. And yeah, we finally see an event that leads him to being institutionalized. Back in the present day, Trent and Dr. Wren talk about the extinction of the human race, and Trent says it's safer in here now anyways. Talks about being able to smell your own extinction. Like it's a little heavy-handed, but I kind of like it. The following evening, we have the attack. We have the attack on the hospital. I really would have loved to have seen John Glover just getting ripped in half, because he seems kind of... When Dr. Wren leaves, you know, he's like, do you read Sutter Kane? And it's like, I took that as John Glover being like, I read Sutter Kane. Like, I'm kind of, you know, I see him becoming one of these things. So I kind of wanted to see somebody just fucking like chopping like John Glover's head off, because he's kind of a shit in this movie. You know, he's not very likable. You know, things must be getting really bad out there for you guys to come in. And Wren kind of like, I don't know, he kind of cold shoulders him a lot. And I feel like, I don't know, there's something about John Glover that's just, he's not likable at all in this. I wouldn't have mind seeing something of like somebody running around with his head on a stick and he's like, oh, okay, well, it's not all bad out there. All right, maybe I'll stick outside.
Oh, it's all right. He gets to star in fucking Batman and Robin a couple of years later.
I fucking know, right?
That's his Lovecraftian nightmare. That's the reality he gets trapped in.
Right.
Yeah, he wakes up every day and he's like, oh, God. But yeah, this is where, like I said, we have the attack on the hospital. Trent's door is destroyed and he is released. Great shot of him walking through and the sparks flying off. And again, really saturated with blues. That kind of shadow pops up behind him. It's really, really, really good. And emergency broadcasts tell us that most of the world is already in disarray, and we see the damage all over the city. Trent stumbles across a movie theater where In the Mouth of Madness is playing. He gets a bowl of popcorn, sits back, and laughs maniacally as he realizes Kane was telling the truth the entire time. Fuck, and that's it, man. I mean, that's...
When he's escaping the asylum, that just totally reminded me of the opening of 28 Days Later. With Cillian Murphy's character just kind of like walking out and being like, what the fuck is this?
No, for sure. I definitely agree. It almost even had like a Walking Dead kind of like the first season of that. I was like, oh, okay. Like I kind of like I get this weird feeling from this. The shit of him. What did you think about this ending, Chris? Like of just a sense of just overwhelming dread.
This is perfect. And I mean, it falls perfectly in line with all of the stuff they're drawing inspiration from. You as a viewer kind of feel the same way he feels. Like you almost kind of want to react the same way. It's a great downer ending, but delivered in a way that not in as dour a way as they usually do it. I think it's one of the most memorable parts of the movie. And I was really surprised to find out that they had originally, it was going to be even more overtly, like there were going to be more creature stuff involved here. Like the popcorn he's eating from, originally a bunch of tentacles were going to like shoot out of it. And
holy shit, I didn't know that.
And then there was they actually shot this scene. It was in that issue of Fangoria I was reading where there was going to be one last jump scare where what's the editor's name again?
Linda.
Where she appears behind him, that she's also in the theater. And then they got rid of all of that. And it's difficult to imagine that it was ever even there, because I think this is kind of the perfect way to end the movie.
No, yeah, there was multiple things changed. I mean, originally in DeLuca's script, the whole town was just going to collapse in on itself and be sucked into the book. There was an ending that apparently Sutter Kane would throw John Trent out a window in the church, and as he's trying to escape, he gets into his car and he's driving off, and the church, just this black kind of fog just comes pumping out of the church, and it starts taking over the whole town. And in the fog would be all of these Lovecraftian kind of creatures. And I'm like, dude, don't get me wrong, that sounds kind of cool, but I don't know if that's necessary. I don't think it's better than this ending.
I don't think they could have pulled that off.
No, not on that budget. But like, dude, just the imagery of that. Because you got to think about that church and how empty everything is around it. Just this black fog and just the silhouettes of this shit walking.
Well, shit, man. I mean,
the fog expands.
That's the Stephen King story, The Mist. That's Silent Hill. I mean, That's like that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I would have loved that, but they were like, dude, the CGI would have been A, awful, and B, expensive. And it's like, dude, that's just not palpable.
I also really like this poster outside of the cinema. The New Line Cinema presents a John Carpenter film, and then it's just like written by Michael DeLuca, and then it's got like it's got the crew.
You almost expect the marquee to say starring Sam Neill.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. Well, I think it says John Trent.
Yeah,
right?
It does.
Like underneath it, I think. I want to play just one more clip here. This ending part is just too good. I've got to play this.
This is not a Sutter Kane story. This is not reality. Not reality. Not reality. This is reality. Hear that? Reality. Not reality. Reality.
holy shit! Like that.
He sounds like Robert De Niro in Cape Fear.
Yeah. Oh, dude. Yeah. Just that. Oh man. That whole ending is like, it's so bleak, but it's so perfectly fitting. It's like, man, there's no other way. Like, could you imagine like any kind of semi-happy ending for this movie? I was like, it doesn't fit. It just doesn't work. But I mean, yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, that's In the Mouth of Madness. That's our second Carpenter down. We haven't really done much Carpenter as much as I guess there's only so many good ones, so I don't want to blow my load and use up all of them, you know. But yeah, that's another Carpenter down for us.
Oh yeah.
I tell you what, you guys, I think we have like one listener comment, and then we can jump into some final thoughts if you guys are cool with that.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah. Well, the one listener comment we got is actually from Joel Puccini. He's another Tennessee native. He lives not too terribly far away from me. Super nice guy. I love Joe. He said one of my all-time favorite sequences is the diner/axe attack of him thinking, do you read Sutter Kane? I like I said earlier, I think that's just super infamous with this now, and it's impossible to like separate this movie from. Like I said, if there's any kind of, I guess, super quotable line in this, it's gonna be that. But I tell you what, Chris, why don't you give us your closing thoughts? We'll do Zohab and then we'll do me.
Okay, sure. So I think a lot of the qualities that made Carpenter's films so indelible in the 80s, where he was just on a fucking run, man. I mean, just like one classic after another. Something just feels a little off when you try to match the style of those with 90s sensibilities as far as just the craft of filmmaking goes, which is maybe why there's been a newfound appreciation, not just for this film, but Carpenter in general more recently, because a lot of the more notable modern horror movies, they actually have a lot more in common with the style he helped pioneer early in his career than they do with anything from the mid 90s, early 2000s. And but that's like the classic run of Carpenter. And then you've got movies like this, which are stuck in this weird middle ground. And like I said at the top, the 90s were a rough era for Carpenter. This is definitely the best of the bunch in terms of his output during that period. But it made me wonder, in a world where The Thing doesn't bomb and have all of these terrible reviews initially and force him to take on a few projects he might not have felt otherwise compelled to do, in a world where this, he makes this movie in the late 80s, what it might have looked or sounded like then, just 5 years earlier, and how differently people might have regarded it. Even something down to as small as, like, I know you said you like the music at the beginning. It's a great piece of music. I think it's tonally completely wrong for this film. It sets the wrong tone. And it just made me wonder if, you had something that was more akin to one of those classic old Carpenter scores, like, the one he did for The Fog, or even Halloween 3, which is not a great movie, I guess, but I think it's a lot of fun. But the score in particular, Carpenter's score for it, is amazing. And so that signature sound that he's known for, it actually would have benefited this. And again, like I said at the top, just the longer, more uninterrupted takes, just more of that type of feel, instead of, it's just this weird mishmash of those classic Carpenter sensibilities with that more, at the time, was the more modern style of filmmaking. I don't think the stuff that makes his films really successful translates that well with just the 90s approach we were taking with horror movies. And the other thing you said at the top, I forgot to mention, it's so funny. You said how, Scream was right after this. And in this interview in Fangoria, Carpenter is lamenting the fact that this is a bad time for horror movies. And that he says in this interview, what horror needs is something like 2001, something that, like what that did for sci-fi, something that comes along, gives it a good kick in the ass, and kind of redefines it for the next, however many decades. And that movie was Scream, and it was right around the corner. I mean, it was like about to happen. But all of that said, I still like the movie we got. There are other John Carpenter movies I obviously like a lot more than this, but I think this is a great movie that was maybe ahead of its time in some ways, and also too of its time in other ways, to mid-90s in some really key ways. But it's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend it to people who have enjoyed other John Carpenter movies and haven't sought this one out yet. I still really dig it a lot.
Hell yeah. I agree with that, especially, and it tries to adapt and keep its roots at the same time. And it's like, man, that just doesn't work. And that's one thing, a criticism I've heard about Carpenter a lot, is that he's an older director who's just not getting with the times and just not getting with things and keep wanting to kind of do things like a certain way.
But that's what's so great is like now it's kind of come full circle where that all of that stuff is in vogue again. Like now it works. Like, why am I blank? It Follows. I fucking love that movie. And that's just straight up. That is 100% John Carpenter. Even the really popular horror movies right now, even the blockbusters like The Conjuring, all of that stuff, they owe more to horror movies from the late 70s and the 80s than they do. I mean, there is nothing happening right now that even looks or feels remotely like what we were doing in the mid to late 90s. And maybe that'll all come back again at some point too.
Pretty sure James Wan's on the record for citing Carpenter as one of his influences.
Yeah, it would make a lot of sense. But it's like, but this is that really awkward period where, yeah, you're right, Colin. He wasn't quite with the times. The stuff, there was just... this was a really awkward period, and not just for John Carpenter, but for horror films.
Hell yeah. Hit me with your thoughts, Zoe.
Well, my closing thoughts it's not going to be as reflective on John Carpenter as a director as much, just because, like I said, I'm not that well versed on him. Sadly, I will rectify that. I kind of want to touch on this whole sort of, I guess, subgenre or side genre of films where the concept takes front and center. Takes the center stage over character work. I mean, like, Carpenter, it doesn't look like he was that sort of concerned with the characters in this movie. And that's I'm not going to say that's totally fine. Like, you should aim to do both. You should aim to have both your concept well fleshed out and your character well fleshed out. But I think sometimes, like, that's just not going to happen, especially with a 1 hour, 35-minute runtime, including credits, including like a fucking 5-minute opening credit scene. And it kind of reminds me of some movies that have been coming out lately. I mean, like, the only example that really pops into mind is Jordan Peele's Us. Have you seen Us, Chris?
Yeah, we just did our review of it for our Patreon page. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, that was one that where the concept kind of took center stage. I mean, like, the characters were great, but they weren't as overly fleshed out as, I guess, some of the characters in Get Out were. So it kind of like starts this whole sort of conversation about films where the premise or the concept takes center stage. And look, I'm forgiving of that. Like, I'm fine with that. If a movie like pulls off the concept or premise and manages to stick the landing, then I'm fine with that. I think in The Mouth of Madness, I think it does. I think for the most part it does. It does do that very well. I did say that the last 10 minutes were not my favorite parts of the movie, but I'm not saying that they're terrible. I can't see any other ending for this movie. I think that's probably the best way to end it. But yeah, like, it is a little disappointing sometimes when you have such a we were talking about it with such a sort of a big reveal, like a big twist, that Trent is the character in I was going to say Jurgen's in Jurgen's book. And we're supposed to, like, that's supposed to have some weight to it, but it didn't come off that way. And look, that is a bit of a shame, but I mean, look, that's just the way things go sometimes. I am really glad to have seen this movie. The mystery elements of it, more than anything, were the most intriguing parts of it for me. Sam Neill was decent, nothing incredible, nothing amazing, but probably the best part of the movie. And man, that accent, dude, you got to check yourself with that accent. That shit was rampant. But yeah, it was definitely worth watching. I'm finally glad to have covered it now, so you can shut the fuck up about it now, Colin, on every future episode. But yeah, it's a solid flick, and I'm definitely wasn't overly fully disappointed on it. I dug it.
Hell yeah, dude. I just want to tell you both, you're wrong. No, I'm just kidding. This has just been a blast to cover. I mean, this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I can separate my nostalgia from it though, and obviously it's got a lot of problems. It's the plot gets kind of like incoherent at points, and it's kind of like, where's this going? I don't really know. The meta within the meta it's just, it ends up getting so heady sometimes, and a lot of people don't like meta stuff like that, and I love it. I don't have any problem with that. It gets very like Bandersnatch on Netflix, the Black Mirror thing. I don't mind that kind of stuff. I like the meta shit because it has this kind of, even though it's H.P. Lovecraft, it has this almost like Philip K. Dick kind of feeling of like, what is reality? Like, what is this? Is this real? Like, kind of thing. And I'm a big fan of Philip K. Dick, way more than Lovecraft. And when you start getting into that rabbit hole of like the reality and meta stuff and, the movie within the movie and the book within the movie within the movie within the book, like kind of thing, it tends to lose people. And I can understand that. I think that a lot of people going in seeing something like this are probably thinking they're going to, because a lot of Carpenter's movies are not like this. I mean, The Thing, The Fog, Village of the Damned, like a lot of his stuff is not this, for lack of a better term, like complicated. I don't really even think this is complicated, but more than your average horror film for sure. I can't think of anything else that's remotely like it off the top of my head. So something that's just like, oh yeah, that's definitely the premise of like In the Mouth of Madness. And I think, like you said, the premise of it taking center stage is what gives it so many good points, because the story feels so much bigger than the characters. And I think that can be a pro and a con. For me, like, I don't mind having a little less, because we've got 90 minutes to pack all this in. So I can understand. I would rather cut a little bit of character development out than ever cut anything out of a script where the premise of it takes front and center. But I am just so, this movie really, really defined how I look at stuff when I pick up my little electric gimbal and I slide my phone in there and I'm filming stuff. John Carpenter's had a massive impact on the way that I think about stuff and artistically and just shots of things. And especially the way that he centers things is just so good. That first shot of Jurgen Prochnow with the church doors opening and them talking about Sutter Kane as the guy gets up closer. It's fucking great. I love this movie. Like I said, it's not perfect, but I'm super glad that we've covered it. I'm almost sad that we've covered it because now I won't be able to come back on and talk about it. I'm doing one of these like every 2 years. Next one, it'll be like Monster Squad, and then it'll be like Eddie and the Cruisers or something. Just these little small movies that like fucking nobody's ever heard of, but apparently Chris.
That's why I waited so long to cover a Denis Villeneuve movie. I was just like, I gotta wait.
Yeah, exactly, man. It's just once they're done, dude. But no, hey, this has just been a blast. Chris, thank you so much for coming on. This is a lot of fun, man.
Cool. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it.
No, absolutely. You're always welcome to come on if there's ever a movie, because like I said, this is not something that's usually in the wheelhouse of Hey, Do You Remember? So if there's ever anything you're like, hey man, I think this would be really fun for us to do, dude, shoot it out there. We're more than happy to have you on. Not Don and Carlos though. I'm sorry. No, I'm just kidding. Those guys are obviously welcome anytime. Unless you guys have anything else to say, I say we just go ahead and wrap and get out of here.
Hell yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm good.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you for listening. We said this at the top, but if you want to find us on Facebook, you can find us at Midnight Double Feature. The group, The After Party, is connected to that. You can find us on Twitter at MDF Pod. Also on Instagram at Midnight Double Feature. We're on YouTube. We're on iTunes. We're on Spotify. We're on everything you can motherfucking think of. So please stop and rate us or review us on iTunes. And please be sure to check out Chris's show, Hey, Do You Remember? It's a fantastic show. It's one of the shows that got us into podcasting. I always really look forward to you guys' episodes. And I just wrapped up the Hellboy one not too long ago. It's really, really good. I really enjoyed that. So please check them out. Rate and review them on iTunes. You will not. You will surely be remiss if you did not. So again, thank you guys for coming on and checking out John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, and we will catch you guys later.